Oh, 6.6.
34, right?
34. What was it?
What was last year's?
33. Oh, this is
Good evening, everyone. We're going to start the meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for April 17th, 2023.
have Eric and Jeff, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have some accolades that we would like to recognize. So the first one, we're going to be recognizing Kendall Prince and Sue Britton for the care closet. And may I turn it over to Bennett, our superintendent, to tell us a little more about this wonderful endeavor.
Yes, so we are excited and pleased to the work that has been done by our community in cooperation with our school and our community. So doing a lot of good things. We appreciate a lot of outreach is going out to folks in need, and tonight is an opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. So Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, there we go. My name is Sue Britton. I'm from Rensselaerville, and my grandsons go to school here. My children graduated from Greenville in 91 and 93. Last fall, I happened to noticed some articles in a couple different newspapers about a project called the Care Closet. And I wondered if Greenville had anything like that. And I started doing some investigating, and I know Byrne has one, and some other schools in the area, and found out that Greenville did not have that type of program. So I asked if maybe someone could put me in contact with someone who would be able to maybe help me get this started. And they offered the wonderful services of Kendall Fricks, your counselor, who's been an absolute delight to work with. She really has, and she's going to give you a few more details about it. But what basically the Care Closet is, and I gave you a copy of the initial flyer that was developed by Kendall and the staff, and there's also some pictures of some of the different articles and everything that we have collected. Basically, the Care Closet is an in-school resource for any student that might need any kind of toiletry items, and it might be difficult for them to obtain those at home or whatever. There are new lockers in the locker rooms in both the middle school and the high school, and access to them is anonymous, so nobody has to go and ask for permission to go and get deodorant if they need it. And the closets are being stocked totally by donations from the community. So I have to tell you, when we first started, I put boxes in 4 of the local churches in the area, and but we also put a box at just a buck up in the plaza at Bryant's or Tops. You see how old I am. So, and the gal that worked there before they closed, her name was Jessica, and this girl went to town for the GCS Care Closet. Every time somebody checked out, she asked if they wanted to donate items to the GCS Care Closet box. And I was going down there at least once a week to pick up a full box about this high of items that people had donated. They donated hats and gloves and mittens, and during the winter months and everything too. But Just a Buck, as we all know, has closed. So we are even more so looking for donations from within the community. If any students want to bring supplies to school, I'm sure that would be fine with Kendall. The list there on the flyer shows the different items that they're looking for. I have heard a couple of students talking about it, and they're very, very appreciative. I mean, a cheerleader, realized she didn't have her hairbrush with her before a basketball game a couple of months ago, and she went to the care closet and found a brush, so she didn't have to have her parents run down and bring it to her. So at this point, though, I would like to, again, if anyone is interested in donating items, we're always welcoming items. So I'll turn it over to Kendall to get you a little more information.
Thank you, Sue. I think she really covered it. We're so grateful for your support. Really, without her, this wouldn't be happening. This was her idea. She said, how can we make this happen? And she has made all of the moves. So thank you, Sue. We also have two students I'd like to thank, Avonlea Parrish and Acadia McDonald, who have taken this on. Acadia really worked with our communication specialist to make the flyer. They're working to help me restock. They are my muscle, getting me all the items to the locker room. So they have really taken this on to help as well. What I love about this is it's not just our students who might be in dire need, it's those who may have forgotten something, those who want to feel a little bit more comfortable or safe at school with all of these items. So it's something to just add a layer of being comfortable, feeling like school can be home for you too. And I really think that it's being utilized. When we've gone to restock, it has needed restocking, and I really appreciate the maturity of our students. There's always the concern of, is this gonna be a mess? Whose responsibility will it be if it becomes a mess? And so far it is not a mess at all. Students have been respectful. The policy is sort of take what you need, leave what you can, and students have done that. So we really appreciate it, and I hope it can continue, and with donations it will. So I think Sue covered everything else. Thank you. Are any questions?
I would just like to thank you very much. You saw our need and addressed it and rolled up your sleeves and made it happen, and that's wonderful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I do have one quick question.
Yeah.
I mean, echo, thank you, it's great work. Are you just looking for donations of the items that are listed, or do you also take cash donations?
So cash is just tricky. It becomes sort of an item that we have to, you guys know, right? Like a budgetary item. Yeah, so really the donations are most
I'm ready
appreciated.
to take cash and go buy stuff.
So talk to her.
I'm on the
And
audit
bring me the
committee, I'll
goods.
come talk to you.
I will take all the things and we will organize them and stock them, but if you want her to do your shopping, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Now I'm going to turn it over to another accolade, Odyssey of the Mind, and Peter Mahan, our elementary principal, is going to share about this wonderful endeavor. So as he comes up, and he looks like he has several assistants, all wearing medals, so that's a hint.
I was just going to say, it's nice to hear all that climbing going on with those medals. Yeah, you can. Nice job, guys.
So I said, just fill in, folks, just fill in. So I am really excited tonight to tell you about our Odyssey of the Mind program once again. The program began less than 10 years ago, but I would say 8 years, probably 7 or 8 years ago. The first students are now graduating seniors, and we had up to 5 teams competing in Odyssey of the Mind as the program grew, and we were super excited and proud of the great thinking that our kids demonstrate on the regional and state and even world level. And then COVID hit, and Odyssey of the Mind didn't continue running the program the same way, and so we had to rebuild. And so this current year is the first year we've been able to rebuild the Odyssey of the Mind program. And we were very fortunate. We had a number of parents step up and say, we can help coordinate this for our kids. And so we have 2 teams at the elementary school. One team led by Tracy and Jason Semix, and another team by Bill Hall and Jenna Welch. And all these students who are with me are on those two teams. And what the teams do is they spend an entire year honing their creativity and problem-solving skills. And they really address two challenges. One is to learn how to be spontaneous problem solvers. And the other challenge is to work on a long-term problem. And so the team of 7 kids works together. And what the coach does is it's a very different kind of coaching. They can't give advice. They can ask questions and help kids discover what they want to do to address the challenge that's in front of them. And so, for example, if the team said, hey, we want to build a craft, and it's got to be made out of wood though. And if the adult says, oh, do you know how to use tools? And they're like, no. Would you like me to bring in someone who can teach you how to use tools? Yes. And so then they can bring someone in and teach them how to use the tools, and they practice on some arbitrary thing. And then what the kids do is they take the skill, and then they are the only ones who are allowed to touch their own creation, not the coach and not the teacher. And they apply those skills in this new context to solve the problem that they selected to solve. Now, when you read the problems that the kids are given, they're expansive. So I'm going to read a synopsis of, so who was doing problem 1 on Mr. Hall's team? Raise your hand. Okay. So these kids chose this problem. And this is how it's written. It's called Pirates and the Treasure. Ahoy, Omers. In this problem, a group of pirates set sail on their ship to reclaim stolen treasure and return it to the Queen. The pirates will battle an original sea monster that guards the treasure. The performance will also include a pirate captain, a flag, and a song. And so what they had to do is take this problem apart and make sure they were addressing every element of it in a creative and fun way. And as they did that, they're awarded points. And when they're at the competition, they compete against other schools trying to solve the same problem or address the same challenge, and schools are judged. So if you're on the problem 3 team, raise your hand. The Walls of Troy. That's good. So this problem is described as Omers. Know that there is more than one way to get past any type of barrier. And in this problem, they will prove it. Ancient Greek poet Homer created the Iliad, which tells the story of Achilles and the Trojan War. Now OM teams will put their spin on the popular concept of the Trojan horse by creating one of their own. And it will be used to get past a wall in a performance that also includes a character from the Iliad, an original Greek chorus, and an unusual statue. Now that is a very short version because the directions for these kids go on and on for pages, and they have to be accountable and figure out, did we address every single piece? It's a huge undertaking. They worked from the fall all the way up till the competition, which was on March 25th. It's hard work, right? Did you have fun? Yeah. So these teams are both first-year teams, and they both competed remarkably well. We could not be more proud. And not only did they compete well, they all medaled. And so both teams came in and earned 3rd place in their respective problems. We were not competing against ourselves because we chose different problems, and so we could not be more proud of them. In addition, one of the teams was nominated for a special Omer Award, which is why you see some kids wearing 2 medals. And what that was for was the remarkable perseverance and troubleshooting while in the middle of their performance, some things that were challenging in the space that they had never been in before. And they persevered. They had a remarkable sense of humor that kept the audience laughing. And it was just so much fun, and we could not be more proud of you. So I'd like to tell you the names of everyone. With us tonight are Kevin Crawley, Rowan Gertzy, Bria Hall, Carter Orlando, Reagan Rockler, McKenna Schwebke, and Rio Welch. And we also have Liam Elsasser, Raylan Gertzy, Natalie Olmstead, Kendall Rockler, Tyler Semix, Jake Solis, and Ella Trafton. So we're really proud of them all. Congratulations. Do you have any questions for us?
So how many of you are going to do it next year? Well, there you go. I think that's resounding wonderful.
Yeah. Does anyone have one thing that they learned that they want to share? Just one thing that really stood out to you? Okay. Do you want to say something? Okay.
Mr. Mahan, I will just comment, I had the opportunity to see both performances, and just really the perseverance was amazing with things when they went wrong. Kept smiling, they kept working, and they troubleshooted those situations, and it was really a proud moment for me as superintendent to watch these kids perform the way they did and have fun doing it. So great work. I know a ton went into it, and you represented our school district very well, so thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Nice job.
Okay, I'm going to move us on to our open forum. So the 30-minute open forum is the time the board sets aside to hear in-person comments from the public. Comments may also be emailed in advance of the meeting prior to 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting, and state in the email if you would like your correspondence read out loud to Daphne Pearson, District Clerk at pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. This is an opportunity for residents to voice general concerns or compliments, especially about items on the agenda. However, this is not the time to register complaints about specific individuals or about items that should be addressed confidentially through the proper channels, either with the principal or the superintendent of schools. All comments shall be addressed to the district clerk and shall be limited to not more than 5 minutes per board policy 2180. Please note that members of the board may not be able to directly respond to citizens' concern during the open forum. We may ask some clarification questions. I just want to say that we are here to listen, and there are a lot of you. So I would just ask, if everyone is going to speak, please try to keep it to the 5 minutes so that everyone can speak. With that, is there anyone that would like to speak? Please just state your name for the record, so even if we know you. There's no one that wants to speak? I'm shocked. Okay.
Hi, I'm Amanda Calvo. I think a number of us parents are interested in wondering why the open forum starting last meeting came before your discussions versus you guys discussing your topics and letting us have an open forum in response. Because I know that I've been to several meetings. Last meeting you did it this way, but prior to that, the open forum was either in the middle or towards the end after you discussed. So many of us are here to discuss prior concerns, but we would like to see what you have to say first.
And if I could just clarify, the way that the meetings run and their recordings, we have the open forum first, then we go into discussion, and then we have a closing forum. And we do have both options. Some other school districts do not have both the beginning and an ending, but we do offer that just to address that. And the discussion is, I mean, it's been pretty much when the discussion time hasn't really moved on the agenda, or just for clarification. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hello, hello. How is everybody? My name's Kelly Wolfe. And as always, this makes me very nervous. I hate doing this so much, but I'm passionate about some things, most things in my life. And this one, well, I'm a little passionate about this. And just to note what Amanda said before, I do remember COVID times. We did an open forum like very last. Is that, I totally remember we discussed everything and
But I'm addressing some things that maybe, you know, we can relate, so maybe you can just say, hey, we're gonna touch on that, you know, and then we can take it from there. All right. Where do I start? Only 5 minutes? Oh, Tracy, you're killing me. I love you though. All right. All right. First off, we have the permission slip that was given to us just recently. I received the permission slip from the librarian, Kylie, on the 13th. That was just 4 days ago. If you don't have a copy of it, here you are. Never ever seen a permission slip. Never seen a permission slip from this school ever come out like this, so I was like a little shocked. I thought maybe I was sent the rough draft. Because, you know, I don't know if you guys can see this. Is that close enough? Can you see it?
Yeah, you can see it.
Cool. So, this is the permission slip that was sent to us, letting us know that it was sent at the beginning of the year. A lot of parents weren't aware of this permission slip that even went out, but it basically just says my child has permission to check out books from the library that are tagged as young adult. Now let me mention, young adult means that's a broad category, and man, I would hate to limit some children from great books that are marked young adults, like Voices of Freedom in this library. All these books are in this library right now. Voices of Freedom, Civil Rights Movement from 1950 through the 80s, War Dogs, The Tales of Canine Heroism, History and Love, The Civil War, An Illustrated History, Trinity, A Graphic History of the First Atomic Bomb. What was the other one? Oh, How to Become a Graphic Designer, also labeled as a young adult book. So I would hate to limit my child or any other child from those books, but I do have a problem with the category named realistic. I'm noticing a little trend. So that brings me to my next handout. Oh. Angela, nice to see you. Jen,
Thank you.
it's always good to
Thanks,
see you.
Jen.
Jen, how you doing? Eric, what's up, man? No name tag, I'm sorry. I saw you in the store the other day, too.
It's Daphne Pearson, the
Daphne,
district clerk.
Tracy, always good. Mr. Bennett, love you. Hello, my dears. Hey, here we are. You might not want to look. I don't know. You're old enough, maybe. I don't know. Okay, here we are. Hey, so this is in a book that is in this library right now. Granted, it's just 2 pages of a 83-page book. And I noticed other parents, other board members from other meetings saying, well, you're lacking the context of the book. Okay, well, let's just tear these 2 pages out, right? This is from a book called Welcome to Saint Hell. His school was named like Saint something, so he changed it to Saint Hell. My trans teen misadventure. This is just shaming women generally. I mean, she's saying how much she hates her body. It says, my anxious brain, my sweaty pits of doom, fatty lumps that need to be gone, my hips from hell, clammy hands, my imaginary willy, do not enter, maybe the one thing I agree with, not a razor in sight, socks always on, okay? You turn to the, oh wait, don't turn to that page yet. But let's go on a little journey together. We're at the town park in Greenville. It's a beautiful park. We're watching the kids play ball. It's a beautiful, warm, sunny afternoon. Everything's going great. Now suppose I start talking to the kids about masturbation and intercourse, maybe even show them some pictures innocently. I would imagine parents would probably be outraged. They'd probably have me arrested, prosecuted, done, thrown in jail, labeled a sex offender for the rest of my life. All very reasonable and expected outcomes of such a behavior, right? Education board members, librarians, and teachers do the same thing. Nothing happens. Nothing happens except the warping of our kids' minds that will affect them for the rest of their lives, because this is the time of their life. What's going on with these pornographic books in the school? It's not education. It's not education. It's obscene and it's child abuse. Let's try another scenario if I have time, but we've already read this page from this book with little reaction from anyone, but it's basically saying that here I am, a teenager, nervous and drunk. I listened and got on my stomach. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I've ever felt in my life. Then he added more lube and tried again, which felt better, but not much. He began stroking. I don't need to read it. I don't need to read it. You know what it is. They're all over there. I have 4 pages of books of a little concern. I'm mostly more concerned, though, about these graphic ones that have comic book style. They're called graphic, realistic novels. And, you know, a 6th grader might not really even be reading anything, but if I was, let's see if this one has pictures, right? Because I'm a 6th grader. I barely can read, right? Oh, I landed on this. That's pretty innocently given to a 6th grader. He didn't even have to have the permission slip because he's just in these 4 walls. It's hard for you guys, I understand. It's a shared space, but we have to go forward with that first because the children come first. In the printout I just gave you, the 2nd and 3rd page, it's from the U.S. Department of Justice website. It discusses obscenity. It states the following: federal law strictly prohibits the distribution of obscene matter to minors. Any transfer or attempt to transfer such material to a minor under the age of 16, which that's majority here in this building, including over the internet, is punishable under federal law. It appears that the members of the board, some of the teachers, some of the librarians may be guilty of distributing obscene material. Some may even call it pornographic. No, I have five minutes. To our children. So I point this out because if you're not interested in taking care of our children by not providing them with pornographic material, maybe you'd be interested in saving yourselves from serious legal action that might land you behind bars for a minimum exposure of awfully a lot of public attention for your role in this child abuse. I suggest you read this in detail, these 2 pages, and anyone can look this up. It's right on the U.S. United States government federal law on obscenity. Now there's a lot in these 2 pages. I can't read them in 5 minutes, but I encourage you to read them in its entirety and not ignore it. It might be a very good starting point for the discussion you should have with your attorneys. The graphic novels are crossing the line. There is zero place for pornography in this school, and any other school for that matter, which other schools in Greene County do not have these books because they're obscene. They're banned in a lot of states, but we're in New York, so nothing's basically banned. But I mean, we've always kind of set the bar, Greenville. You know, people really look to us in the district as a school district, especially during COVID and everything. We were really creating momentum, and you guys were doing the best you could in a very hard time. Now, I didn't have too much time, but I will be following the money trail behind these books as well, because I feel like there is a major agenda here, and I am not going to stand for this. indoctrination of our children anymore. Any questions?
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
My name is Amanda Calvo. Kelly did an amazing job. The only thing that I can say that's incredibly unfortunate is I have a fellow community member in tears. Not the first, not the second, not the third, this is the fourth time we've been here. I'm hoping to get some answers that should be on the agenda tonight. There was supposed to be a scheduled date for an open discussion with parents and school board members. We look forward to hearing your side. But to reiterate the things that you said, I read you the same Department of Justice. A lot of people focused on the last meeting about this having something to do with LGBTQ. She didn't say anything about any of that. This is about the material that you're offering to your students that's sitting right over there on these shelves. They're in the fantasy section. School's supposed to be exciting, not erotic.
Romance.
Okay. Oh, romance.
Romance.
Right. So to skip over the whole ideology of why people think that parents are up here disputing these books, do they happen to be more often than not books that are about transgender children and things like that? Yes, they do. Is that something that we chose or did not choose? No, it's not. These are just the books that are across the United States being banned from schools. They're not banned from the world, guys. Anybody can go home and order these books. You can get them on a Kindle. You can read them on a Fire. You can do whatever it is that you want to do on your computer or your phone or any personal device. Right? Just because XXNX is free on the internet, we're not going to hook up the computers in the library and let the kids log in. Let's just start being realistic here, and let's stop pussyfooting around and trying to make light of things and saying this, that, and the third, and well, we're going to figure it out, and this is a sensitive subject. You're right, it is a sensitive subject. Because this is a bias agenda. This is a one-way street. And you know, and I know, and all the rest of these smart parents know, our pastors know, and everybody else in this community knows. This isn't just about books. We know where this is going. This is trash. This isn't educational in any way. This picture that you have that you just passed out, this is a young woman body shaming herself. She's writing as though this was her personal journal on display about how she hates herself. That's a mental health issue. And you know what you guys are doing as a school district by stringing this out? You're enabling poor quality of your students' mental health. That's what you're doing. You're showing them and allowing them to look at these books, confirming. This isn't body positivity. This isn't positive reading. You're confirming that a young girl with an eating disorder or issues or having trouble at home or not liking herself, she's going to come in and she's going to read this book and go, see, she wants her boobs off. She doesn't shave her legs. I'm with her. No. Absolutely not. This is not educational. We do not have a strong, prominent section displayed, guys, with the American flag promoting the Constitution of the United States of America. We don't have books on display on how to assemble guns. It's the Second Amendment, yeah? This is the United States of America. It's about freedom. So if you want your freedom, I want mine. Because I'm raising my kids, not you. So until you can even the playing field, we want something done. And we're not going to keep asking There are schools that are removing these books. You guys are the only school in Greene County that possesses these books. You want to know what I want to know? I want to know, how do these books get picked? I want to know who picks them.
Yeah.
I want to know who picks these books. Because unfortunately for this panel of people, you're sitting here mystified since the first meeting. We have to keep showing you dialogue, and we have to keep reading and pictures, right? Because you couldn't possibly go home and read all these books between 30 days. So you guys are all sitting up here mystified about what's in your own library. I want to know who picks the books. Because they're responsible for it. We asked for a plan, so I hope you have one. Because I asked for one last time, and I got a plan to have a plan. But again, this is the United States of America, and what you guys are allowing in your school is called grooming. You're grooming our children. That's what pedophiles do. You're grooming them to make them think that this type of sexual display, it's acceptable. It's not acceptable, it's demonic. We're not talking about an LGBTQ book supporting someone in a same-sex relationship in a positive way. Don't sit here and misconstrue and try to paint a picture that this is about that, because that's not what this is about. This is about sexual, explicit material that has no place. If my kid can't come to school with a rifle on his shirt that says the right to bear arms without being dress coded, and if these kids can't walk around with a Bible in their hand talking about their love of God, then you better get this stuff out of your library, because there is education in all shapes and forms, and that's not it.
I'm sorry, you guys are gonna get so sick of me. I'm so sorry. Okay, but I just gotta say one more thing. This is not just 2-3 books. I thought at first it was just 2 or 3 books. There's I don't even know how many.
You possess all of them on the top of the
yes,
list.
and there's 30 to 40. I was kind of losing count. I have a nighttime job. I have a daytime job. I have 3 kids. It's been crazy, okay? So I've been doing my research, and I'm going to continue to do more, and I can get a final count for you, and I will personally help with the removal or the censorship of these, not censors, it's just a different category for them, because like I said before, the young adult history books are much different than the young adult, romantic and LGBTQT. Yeah. So there's just a lot of them, that's all. And I have the 30 and 40 that I mentioned here in screenshots. I didn't get a chance to print it, so if anyone does want to know. You can also use the keyword search on the library catalog. You can just type in keywords that are really great. By the way, when I typed in Bible, there was no Christian options. There was Judaism, there was Buddha, there was a lot of other things, but there was not one Christian based book. So I will plan on getting you guys some, whether it's through donations or through, I don't know, my own pocket. I'll figure it out. But Mr. Bennett, I believe that the librarian was in touch with you. At least she told me that she was in touch with you on how to go about those donations. So I do look forward to an update, maybe possibly this week on that. And we can get that locked down, because I have great series that I would love, fiction books, novels, for the religious Christian believers that are in this school. And you do have a majority of them, so thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Renee Royer. I was not planning on speaking, so forgive me if I'm a transplant. I've only lived here for maybe 6 years. My husband and I purposely moved here to go to Greenville. Our kids were going to Greenville, and that was it. We looked for 2 years to get a house in this district. I love this district. I love the teachers. You guys are great. With that being said, this is the second meeting that I know of that this is the same topic. I understand you're here to listen and not respond. But this is a splinter that is festering. This is not like the big mask meeting, that huge, where we only had to wait and sit on our hands collectively for a week and hope to took the decision for us. This is not going away. I would really, maybe in the forum after this, you guys are gonna touch on this subject and this is all for nothing. We need a response. I read the Greenville Pioneer, there was quotes from members there. I read Porcupine Soup, there was quotes from members there, but parents are not getting feedback. And this is why it is festering. No matter what decision you make, some parent is going to be mad, but that's part of being a leader. You're not going to make everyone happy with every decision. That comes with the job. But we need a decision. There needs to be something said, a plan, not a plan to make a plan, because this is just going to fester and divide us even more. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi. My name is Will Balta. I'm the pastor.
Excuse me, if you could press the button, because on the recording they cannot hear you. We can hear you here.
Is that blue light?
You got it, thank you.
Hi, my name is Will Balta. I'm the pastor of the Southwest Low Congregational Christian Church. I've been there since 1994, and I just want to thank Kelly and those who are doing this and making us, the rest of us, aware, those of us who pay taxes to the school. And I think they're doing a great job, and I just, it's going to be probably the shortest sermon I ever give compared to yesterday. But amen. Thank you for what you're doing.
Anyone else?
I just have a question.
Can you come up to the podium, because otherwise they can't hear you on the recording.
I think it's on. I think.
My question is, if children take out that material that's there, whatever that is, do the parents get an email, or are they aware of it, that their children are taking that material out?
I think that one of the things that we can do is during the discussion, then we can clarify that. Just to kind of provide, during open forum, then it's not necessarily a back and forth dialogue. So that's part of the reason that we want to have the workshop, that we can have a dialogue.
I see.
So the open forum is to listen to concerns. We are talking about some of the specifics later on in the agenda. So if you could hold that question, I think we will answer it. It will be answered, I should say.
Hi, my name is Frances Bouillon. Greenville is my alma mater. And I worked at the school for 22 years. And I wasn't aware of what was going on until this past couple days. And it's extremely shocking. Pornography is separate from freedom of speech. And what those women are talking about is pornography. This hypersexual language makes children vulnerable and conditions them. And when they are approached, when and if they are approached by predators, they are defenseless because they already know the language. And they are groomed. And that also whets their appetite, and they want to further explore it by going on the internet if they're not already. And then when they're exploring the internet, who comes up but the predators? Making the children very, very vulnerable.
My name is Teresa. I have a child in school here. I did not plan to speak at all tonight. I'm here because...
Can you just turn on the microphone?
It is on, sorry.
It is, okay.
I'm just speaking quietly.
What's your last name, please?
Clark.
Clark, thank you.
You're welcome. I am a healthcare professional and work with children of all ages and adults of all ages. And I just want to say I have not read any of these books, and I didn't see whatever it was you were sharing. I'd love to. But just to respond to the woman who was just speaking, I, as a child, read Flowers in the Attic. I don't know if anybody else did, but there was some stuff in there that at the age I was at, it was like, oh, this is, and it did not make me like lust for anything. It's growing up, it's maturing, making children at age-appropriate times and developmentally appropriate ways of their bodies, setting boundaries, and educating them about X, Y, and Z does not make them vulnerable. Empowering children with knowledge at the age-appropriate levels and the setting appropriate ways does not make them more at risk to become victims. Educating them about boundaries and their own bodies is not making them more likely to be a victim. It's actually empowering them to not be victimized. Because if they know X, Y, and Z is what somebody who's going to try to take advantage of them is going to say to them or try to groom them, they're going to have that awareness and that education, and they're not going to fall for it. So again, I have not read any of the information in question. I've not seen what you had because I was behind you. Okay. But again, I don't know like how this book ended. Did she find a healthy way to deal with her poor self-image? I don't know. When I was a kid, I was goofy and had glasses and didn't like that, and had teeth that needed braces and didn't like that. And you found a book and you read about the kid with the braces and how they dealt with it. So I don't know, did she have a healthy outcome? Is it an education in the end? I don't know because I haven't read it. But I also don't know if anybody else here has read it and can say, yes, while she didn't like herself in this form, she found a healthy way to deal with it. And if that's in there, you got a kid that's struggling, good. They have a way that they don't have to try to talk to somebody and find somebody that they can trust, because God forbid you aren't a Christian who studies the Bible and prays every night, because then you don't fit into the mold of the majority of students that are here. And if you're a kid that happens to be a little different and you find a book that there's somebody like you and it can help you find a healthy way to adapt and grow, that's great.
Let's get some Christian books in here.
I'm not a Christian.
Right.
I don't care to have that for my kid.
Are you transgender?
No. How would you know?
I don't know.
Why does it matter?
This is about, right.
So, okay, I'm probably out of time, but I'm just saying I will find this book and I will read through it, and hopefully that will be the outcome. If not, I'm sorry, I'm probably over time. Thank you.
Hi, Katie Darmuth. Also didn't plan on speaking, but I just want to respond to that briefly. One of the things that you mentioned is that the material needs to be age appropriate. And my question is, who determines what's age appropriate? And so maybe you're right, at a certain point, kids need to learn about their bodies and
you know, they're all going through challenging times, but as a parent, I'd like to reserve the right to determine when my child is ready for those conversations and that information. And I think that's fair. I know my kid better than anybody. I know you're all great educators. You all care about our kids, but no one cares about my kid more than me.
That's right.
And no one's knows more about my kid. You don't know his favorite color. You don't know what he's scared of. You don't know what he likes to do. And so I know my kids better than anyone. And all I think parents here are expressing is that they would like to reserve the right to determine when it's okay for those kids, our kids, to have that information.
Right, so you just educate your child to talk to but they're your child, so you would hope that they would.
All right, I think if we, please step up. If we could just state it and kind of the back, ooh, wow. The back and forth, let's please be respectful of the open forum, stating the opinions, and so forth, but I don't necessarily feel that this is engaging in a dialogue right now. We will, like I said, we've selected a date for the workshop, which we'll share shortly, and that may be a more appropriate time. Sir, you're up.
My name is John Larocca. I live in Medusa. My wife and I have been here for about 50 years. Our 2 children went to Greenville School and absolutely thrived here. One could argue that I don't have a dog in this fight, but I absolutely do have a dog in this fight, okay? And the dog is about the kind of kid that comes out of Greenville school system, because those kids will be my neighbors for as long as I am alive. And so I don't know the answer to any given book that's on the shelf here. Should it be here or should it not be here? But I have extraordinary faith in the people sitting around this table and the parents who are talking here tonight. But I would urge you to come up with an answer that in fact involves the broadest possible spectrum of books in this library that it possibly can. And again, I want that because those kids that read those books, I want them to be well-rounded, patriotic, whatever other good thing they can be, because they'll be my neighbors for as long as I'm alive. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else? We have a couple of emails. No, we absolutely have one.
I do not have that. I will look for it and read it at the next one. Is it open or closing one? Okay. I mean, I think I find it.
All right, then I'm going to move us on to the discussion and the budget development update. Michael Bennett, the superintendent of schools. I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, and I do want to just say thank you for all those folks who stepped up to the microphone and didn't plan to today. I know it can be a little scary to do that, so I appreciate you being able to do that. So we are at the point in our budget process where we are looking at adopting the budget that will go out to vote in the beginning of May or middle of May. There's really no changes since the last time we spoke, 2 meetings ago, I believe, in which case we were still waiting for the governor and the state to come up with a budget. As we all know, they keep putting an extender out there, so we don't have exactly what those numbers are going to be just yet. But tonight is just a quick overview, excuse me, so that folks are able to understand what they're going to be voting on later in the meeting. State aid, as I said, has not changed since our March 13th presentation. State legislators are still working on finalizing the budget. And then the property taxes haven't changed since that presentation, or the appropriated fund balance. State aid projections, the numbers have not changed. Since we received the governor's proposal, this is the piece that, if it's going to change, it generally will not change all that much, and we will adjust the budget in regards to appropriated fund balance as we get closer to that point. Property tax, the board come up with our property tax cap, came in at 2.51, and from the guidance of the school board, the tax levy was set at 2.47, moving into next year's budget. Appropriated fund balance, there is no increase or decrease to the unplanned appropriated fund balance. Again, this may change slightly based on the numbers that come in from the state as far as state aid goes. But at this point, we do not see a need to either increase or decrease that number with the appropriated fund balance. Next is our revenue summary. This is the overview of our revenue. Largest part of school district revenue is real estate taxes, as we know, which is 53.14% of the budget. State aid is in and around 41% of what we rely on. And then we have miscellaneous revenues that come in at about 5.5% through different things that we get aid on and things like that. The budget is really a three-part component. The three-part shows administrative component as an increase of about $102,000, capital component a decrease of $438,000 roughly, and then program component is an increase of about $866,000. So we're about 1.57% increase of budget from the 22-23 school year to the 23-24 school year. So we've worked hard to keep that percent relatively low given where we're at in our community and in the state and in the nation really with inflation and things like that. So we are, again, 1.57% above last year's overall total budget. So the administrative component that I mentioned covers the administration of the school along with clerical staff, school board costs, insurance, and central processing. That makes up our administrative component of the budget. Capital component covers maintenance, custodial staff, debt service, utilities, facilities costs, service contracts, maintenance and repairs. That is down slightly from last year with some debt service coming off. And then the final part of the budget, the third part of the budget is our program component. That covers salaries and benefits of all teachers, staff delivering pupil services, textbooks, instructional materials, equipment and BOCES programs, costs, and transportation. And again, that is up slightly from last year, but again, a lot of that is just with rollover of contracts and salaries and things like that. Next slide shows our expenditures by category. As you can see, salary and benefits of the school district is the largest expenditure. We're in the people business, so of course that is going to be our largest area of the budget at about 74%, almost 75% of the budget. Contractual and tuition is at 8.5% of the budget. BOCES services at about 7.87% of the budget. Debt service is 6.13% of our budget. And then equipment, material, and supplies is only about 2.61% of our budget. And the last piece of it is our inter-fund transfer to federal is 0.18% of the budget. So again, when we take a look at our overall budget, outside of contracts and salaries and things like that, there's just a little bit of room to be able to move around and really be able to control outside of the contracts of the unions. So our preliminary budget for the 23-24 school year, as you see, is $34,227,771. That's up from our 22-23 budget, which is $697,442 at a cost increase of about $530,000. And again, that gets us to that percent increase of 1.57%. Tax levy for the 23-24 school year is going to be at $18,187,970, and that is up from the $17,749,556,000 of the 22-23 tax levy, an increased amount of just over $438,000. Again, that percent increase of 2.47 from last year's budget until this year's budget. So our next steps, we will have our annual budget hearing on May 2nd in the middle high school auditorium at 6:30 p.m. And then our Board of Education election budget vote is May 16th at the Ellis Cafeteria. So any questions from the board about the budget? Really, there isn't much of a change from last year from last meeting to this meeting.
I have a question, Mike.
Yep.
I've asked a lot of questions about the budget. One minor detail that I had forgotten earlier to ask you about. One of your initiatives that you proposed this year was to open the fitness room to the community. Do you have a plan for that?
Yes, that is in the budget. We had planned on 2 days a week to open up that fitness center to our school community, in which we'll staff it with someone from inside the district to make sure that we are providing oversight of that area.
How long? During the day, after?
It would be in the evening, because again, I think what we're looking to do is to make sure that our students and our coaches and their teams have direct access to it. So we haven't come up with exact times yet, but we were thinking more either if it was an hour before school started and an hour in the early evening. We haven't come up with exact times yet.
And then during the school year or throughout the year?
Throughout the year. Right now, the idea would be we may adjust it for summer hours, depending on our availability and what the need is. Maybe put out a community survey for the summer hours, but right now it is for the course of the school year and through the summer.
Okay. Thanks.
You got it. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mike. So now I'm going to move us on to 5.2, the school resource officer, and a discussion around the body count. I'll turn it over to you, and we also, if we could welcome Sergeant Bennett. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we are joined tonight by Sergeant Bell from the Greene County Sheriff's Department. Thank you for coming and making some time to kind of share where the Sheriff's Department is going with body cameras. This was brought to our Greene County safety meetings that we have monthly, that they were going to initiate these into schools across the county for the September school year. And so what I've asked the sergeant to do is come in and part of our agenda setting meeting with Tracy and Duncan, just kind of get to some of the quick questions, but I wanted the entire board to have an understanding firsthand. I don't think I could do it justice, so I figured we'd invite the sergeant in to have some conversation around what we can expect. So, Sergeant?
Good evening. I'm just going to start by introducing myself. As of November this year, I took over the school resource officer, direct supervisor. We have gotten to the point where we have 7 in the county, and we're going up to 8 or 9 possibly next year. So the span of control for us got too great for Captain Quinn to take over and continue. So I took over as of November. I'm a 10-year employee for the county with 4 more years before that. So I do that, and I also do the threat assessment team that the governor instated this year. I'm in charge of that. With police reform a couple of years ago, one of the big things was cameras for the patrol cars and also body cams. As of April 1st, our department has rolled out full deployment of 5 cameras in the car and also 1 that is worn by our officers during their regular patrol. We have not rolled them out to the schools yet just because of legal issues and training and so on, but I wanted to go over how they're going to be used and answer any questions, because it is, I've been to every school except for Catskill. This is the last one I have to go to, and there has been some questions and concerns. I can tell you right off the bat that we have had, since testing started in January, we have had 5 complaints come in against our officers, and every one of them has been cleared because of the body cam footage. We require if somebody wants to make a complaint, they have to sign a complaint, and every time we say we have body cam footage, nobody wants to sign a complaint because it's not factual. These cameras do run when they're running. They do run 24/7. Now that being said, they only run video when they're in stationary mode, as we call it. So basically I'll be going around, if this was on, which it is not, just so everybody feels comfortable, it would be recording you but no audio. It's at the officer's discretion on when he decides to activate the audio part of the footage. When he does that, it makes an event. That event is 30 seconds prior to him putting the event, and then the minute he shuts it off, it stops. The questions that have come up from that is who is eligible to get that video. The answer is the only people that can have that without a true FOIL, if everybody's understanding that, the Freedom of Information Act, is us. It does not go anywhere. It will not be given to anybody. The FOIL process for our office starts with a letter to our undersheriff. It then goes to our legal team, and then the sheriff still has the right to say, no, we're not going to give that out. On top of that, because of the fact that we're dealing with your kids and minors, we're going to just say there's 3 kids in the video. We will contact you as the sheriff's office and ask, do you want their faces redacted from that video? We have the right to do that. So we will redact it if somebody is granted that FOIL. If the school requests, hey, can we look at something? Yes, we will let the school look at it, but they're not going to be able to keep it. The footage that's running 24/7 on these body cams only stays on this body cam and it rewrites. With the school being open 5 days a week, we're estimating 3 to 4 weeks, and the video footage will then rewrite itself. Now, if a student or a parent makes an accusation against the school resource officer, on this day he was inappropriate, as long as it has not rewritten, we can grab that video. There will not be any audio, but we can grab that video. That video then will be FOILable. If the student is having a private conversation and it's not a criminal matter, the officer has been, we're training that you don't turn this on. It's only when it becomes a criminal matter that it needs to be activated. That being said, with the minor, we can't interview any minor without your permission and you being there. So none of that can happen anyway. But if he comes down the hall and there's a fight or something else, it will be activated, because sometimes crimes do happen because of that. If there's a sporting event and our SRO is there, you have the public there. You never know what could break out. I was a Carroll student. We all know there's fights between Carroll and Greenville back in the day. So if everybody knew I was here, I'd probably be roasted. But so I think it's a great opportunity. This camera, if I'm correct, the schools are all cameraed almost every inch, correct, to begin with. So it's not something new. So some of the other schools, they said, well, the video footage is going to be leaked. I can tell you this, we've had 2 big fights in the town of Catskill School, which we started this year, and we learned about those fights because of YouTube, because they were already on YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, and so on. So the footage is out there, but we're not giving it out. We're not going to be posting it on our social media. We're not going to be giving it out. There's a direct order in there. If any officer ever takes a picture of body cam footage, he's automatically getting disciplined, and the sheriff is very, very strong on that because he believes that we need to keep that safe and out of the public's eyes if it doesn't need to be either. So, is there any questions for the board members?
Thank you for the explanation. That's very helpful. I just want to make sure that I understood everything. So when the body camera is being worn, the video part is always running. It's always recording video, but only if, I think you said there's an event, when it's activated, that's when the audio starts recording?
Correct.
And you said that only happens if you think there might be some criminal activity.
Correct.
And for storage, how long does it store the video and audio on the unit until it rewrites?
So the events will never be, so what happens is if the school resource, the way we're setting it up is the school resource officer called me and said, I had an event today. I will come and I will take his body cam and I will change it out. I will go, and the only way we can download these, it's not wirelessly. So we have to put this into a stand that has to be on our secure network, which there's 3 of them. There's our main station in Coxsackie, the county office building, and Greene County Mental Health. That's the only 3 places these can be downloaded. The school resource officers are going to be issued docs only to charge them, because if there's no event, I don't want to have to keep going back and forth. So an event, by clicking the button, will be retained until there's certain, actually the Department of Education determines how long we even have to keep our body cam footage. For basic, non-criminal, we just pushed the button, we thought there was going to be something, turned out nothing, is 180 days. Say there's a misdemeanor offense, that could be a year. Felonies could be forever. So that's all laid out with the Department of Education on how long we have to keep things. So every event will be kept for 180 days. The events never rewrite on the body cam itself. So once I push it, and then we do an event, it will stay on there. And then once we shut it off, the other footage will continue and rewrite itself. But that event will always stay till I dock it. And then the body cam will be cleared out, but it'll be retained in our cloud-based storage.
Okay. And then I think just one more question on that. If there's no event, it just, the unit just keeps recording, and after, I think you said after a certain amount of time it fills up and then it rewrites, right? So how long can you use it before it fills up?
It's 3 terabytes.
Oh, is that?
It's a decent amount, but we're estimating with it running continuously about 3 to 4 weeks with an SRO. It's different when the road guys, because they were, their rotation is different, and at the end of their shifts, they're plugging in it every time, and it downloads every shift. Where the SROs, if they have no event, I'm not going to come here and remove it. So it could be a couple weeks, and then but once I put it on the dock, it does clear it out. So if they call me and it's 2 days, and I take it, it's going to clear out and start all over again.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. You mentioned when you started about 5 instances of accusations. Was that in the school, or
No.
You're not using these in the schools yet? Okay.
No. We're potential rollout right now is probably September with most of the superintendents starting a new year. Obviously, everybody has to contact their attorneys and go through the process. So we're shooting for September right now.
I've also heard that in schools, the SROs, part of the program is to build relationship with kids. And I think that's worked well here with our SRO, as far as what I've heard. Have you had any advice from anybody that these cameras might change that relationship?
So this is a new thing for Greene County, but it's not a new thing for the SRO program. Columbia, Ulster, and Albany already have them. Most kids, and I think most people, believe they're being recorded any day now. You're out in the field, we're all getting recorded. I can't tell you, it used to be 2 years ago, it would be a weird thing for somebody to pop up a cell phone and record you. We're so used to it now, we're basically like, hey, are you on the right angle? Because it doesn't matter. We're so used to it. Yes, could it affect it? But I don't think it will, because I think the kids in these days, they know they're being recorded. And once they learn the system, that as long as he doesn't push the event, it's still a confidential conversation. That's with the SRO, and he can talk somebody through that. I'm talking the whole room to make you understand that it's not like if I turn this on, there's no audio. Once you know that, now you're going to feel more comfortable.
Do you have any plans for, when you roll this out in September, addressing the students?
We don't as of right now.
Because I was wondering how,
Well, and
it's gonna be obvious that, you know,
I mean, you can see
they're
it.
starting to wear, right. But the whole aspect of turning on the audio might signal something to them.
Yeah. I mean, that's something, I don't know if the legal team is gonna say, hey, listen, do we need to put out a notice to the parents and the students that this is coming? So, I mean, it's a great idea. I don't know what they've done in Ulster and Albany County. I can ask and see if they've done something.
Thank you.
And just to touch, you mentioned Dustin. I know everybody here knows that Dustin was injured and has been out. His surgery went great. He has a follow-up sometime this month and hopefully back sooner than later. He's doing very well, so.
I might have one quick question, I guess, two. One is on the body cam when the audible is triggered. Is there plans to put like a small little beacon or indicator light that would also be a deterrent? It could be looked at as a deterrent. And then secondly, if you did push that button, is it connected to where you as a sergeant would know that I've had something activated, where you get the information before and a shift that, or when they'd be able to communicate with you?
So we chose not to do a beacon only because of officer safety, because typically they're worn around the chest, and if there's a light or anything, that's a target for people. It does beep, and if I have it on me, I have to literally go like this, and then it beeps. So it's noticeable. You're not going to be like, oh, I just turned it on stealth. No, you're going to notice it. And then it does continue to beep every 5 minutes while it's recording, whether it's doing audio or just video. So now if I'm speaking to we'll say a suspect or somebody we think's performing an act, and then it'll beep, and then I want to go talk to the principal, I can mute it to have a private conversation with that if we don't believe, as long as we're not dealing with the suspect. And the other answer is no, that's not going to not alert me that there's an event.
Thank you.
Just one clear. I'm just curious. I'm sorry. I'm just curious. When you said you can mute it, you mean you can mute the beep?
No, like if it's recording and we have an event, and I need to talk to the principal or the superintendent, I can say member conference, and then I can shut the audio down to have a private conversation. That way, if we have to talk about something sensitive, it won't be recorded.
I'm just curious. It seems that I understand why the red light would be a safety issue. I think that under certain circumstances, the beeping could also, and that's what I was wondering.
I would think that's not that much of a safety issue. The biggest thing is a lot of these actually could have this whole entire ring here glow white, and even in low light, it's a target for us. So we've eliminated that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This was very informative. We appreciate it. And it would be helpful to find out what the other counties are doing as far as communication. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sergeant. I can follow up with some of the superintendents in Columbia County to see how they've addressed it with their school communities as well.
Okay, so for the dust collector update.
Okay, so I think we are at a point now, we're going to move along with the dust collector. There had been some back and forth. Jim, I want to thank you for all your work on working with SEI on making sure that we're getting to a good spot. I think we are there now, and we appreciate that. So there was a couple of things that I know that Janet had put it out a little additional money, knowing that we were potentially going to need some additional money to do this. It doesn't look like we will need all of that right now. I think what we're looking to do now is to take some of the work that we had taken out of the project to keep the costs down. We may now be able to put back in, because then we can get some additional aid on some of that stuff. So I think we're in a good spot now to move forward with that dust collector, and working with SEI, we keep it under a certain number, I forget what that number is, we will not have to put it back out to bid. So we were working with our attorneys and SEI to see if we could be able to do that. So again, we're in a good spot to move forward.
And I do just want to thank you for being patient with us, I think, as we worked through some of the questions, but I think that it was necessary, shall we say, for everyone to feel that the questions were identified, addressed, and everyone was comfortable prior to approving it. So thank you.
Well, and again, I will say that, you know, during our initial, even going back to the capital project, with some of the conversations we had in some of our public forums around the capital project, where people addressed some of those issues and concerns around, you know, making sure what we're doing is needed and we're being fiscally responsible. So that came from some community members, and I think that that's something that's important, and Jim has been very good about you know, kind of staying on top of things there and moving it along. So again, it's really a community and Board of Education. Thank everyone for their input into it.
One question. Thanks, Jim, for your work on it. I appreciate your expertise. I'm only interested in what the final cost on this is, Mike, and I know Janet's not here. If she was here, she probably would have that number.
Yeah.
Unless you have it, you could get it to me.
I do not have the same brain that Janet has. She's remarkable with recalling some of those things, but we can get you that final number. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I know the original number was 420. Let's say that again.
That's 611, the number's there, but really there are two components to it, because we have the dust collector as well as the air handler, with the air handler being the larger element or component of that.
Okay.
All right, so then I'd like to move us on to the book collection development. One of the first things I do want to say is the date that we've selected is May 30 in the evening for a public workshop. And we felt that it was necessary that, as everyone can tell, open forum is not necessarily the most conducive to a dialogue, but given the wide range of opinions on this, we wanted to have a way to dialogue. So if you would, please add that to your calendars. So Tuesday, May 30th. We also have, we're in the process of identifying a moderator to kind of help us work through the different issues that we have and so forth. And with that, really, let me turn it over to you, Mike, and then we do have some questions here that we can also answer.
Yeah, so there was a, taking a look at this and where we're at. I know that the Board of Education has gotten kind of a rough draft of, and has given us some feedback in regards to the book selection process. We brought it before the break to our district level team, which consists of some parents, faculty, and some administration, again, to get their opinions on some of this. So we are in the process of taking a look at that. And I think through our DLT, some of the questions that were raised this evening were also raised by some of the parent members of that group, and taking a look at simple things like, you know, how can a parent get notified when a book is being taken out? I think one of the things that we think is an easy solution when we start to talk about some of our technology and software and the way they interact with each other, whether it's through School Tool or our library systems. Sometimes those programs and softwares don't talk very well to each other and aren't able to do some of the things that we think are pretty simple to do. But we are investigating some of those things in regards to notifications and making sure that we are finding a way to let parents know. The permission slips that are sent to the middle school parents as part of their opening school year information, I think, has been indicated, is kind of lost sometimes in where parents are able to see that or get that. So it was sent out again to the middle school parents as part of the library link. But again, I think it's not a perfect system right now, and we need to work a little bit harder on trying to figure out how we can make sure parents are informed of what kids are taking out and things like that. So again, understanding that this is a hot topic, we have worked with Questar 3, our regional BOCES, to kind of get an idea of what other schools are doing. It's kind of been the genesis of where we started from, and really building upon that aspect of what other schools are doing and what Questar is looking to use as kind of a model to kind of fast track our process. I think the May 30th conversation is May 30th. Yeah. Will help us to hone in even more information in regards to how we want to continue to move forward with some of the processes that we put into place going into the next school year, and try to deal with any of the things that we can do in the short term as well. So.
Well, you touched on some of the things. I do think we need to find a system to notify parents. Not, like I said in an email to you, it may not be the majority of parents whose lives will be changed by this, but it will be everything to some parents. So if I'm a parent who thinks my child can read whatever they want, then that's fine. And I'm not going to be affected by a permission slip or the notification, because I probably won't even look at it. But some people, it will be huge for them, and I really think that that's a very simple solution. I don't know the technology of it, but that's not my department.
Yeah, we've had some conversations around how do we roll something like that out in regards to, do we have parents opt in to that email notice or opt out of it? Again, that's something that we'll have to take a look at.
Oh, and one more thing. My daughter's in 11th grade. I've never seen that permission slip, so don't trust kids to bring paperwork home. Put it on the website.
Fair enough.
I can just share anecdotally, and this was years ago, that when my daughter was interested in reading a series, then an email came home to me saying, are you aware of this? And I had to grant permission for that. So it's not something new. It's something that existed. My daughter's getting ready to graduate from college, and this was when she was in the 9th grade. One of the questions that was asked was about what is the process of taking out a YA book. So a YA book, just so everyone understands, is called a young adult book. Right now, the classification is not a classification that the school designates. It is actually a classification from, I think, the National Library Association. Please don't quote me on that. But it is a larger national organization. And the age designation for that right now is 14 years of age. So any child that is under 14 years of age needs to have parental permission in order to take a YA book out. Now, YA books cover a range of subjects for that. So that was one question. I just wanted to answer that. And the other question was, who determines what's age appropriate? The 14 is right now the current designation by that national organization. However, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there, that obviously if a parent feels strongly that 14 isn't appropriate for their child, then I would encourage them to have a dialogue with the librarian and say, this is the age that is right for us as a family for that. That there's nothing hard and fast about one age. I think that children mature at different rates, and really it's about providing the flexibility so that what is right for one family is also something that is right for a different family. And I think that one of the things that in listening to what you're saying and speaking about has come through loud and clear. So I just want to kind of share my thoughts on that. Go ahead.
I also want to second the part of when my child was going through the school, I believe it was in middle school, he was asking for a book, and it was a YA book, and we were flagged and we had to sign the permission slip. So the permission slip has been around for a long time. He's now 27, so it's not new.
Not new, but not implemented, right, currently.
I think it's there. It may not be advertised very well.
There should probably be a little more transparency too in what is considered a young adult book, what falls into those categories. Some parents might sign off not being fully aware of what they're allowing their kid to take home.
And if that's something that we can do a better job at, is what is the designation, what is the age, what is the subject matter, because it covers a wide range. It's not just one thing, and so what may be an issue for one family could be different for another family. So yes, we hear you. And one of the things I think that every year the student handbook is something that goes home to parents. Students, I believe, are required to sign it, or maybe the parents are required. I remember having to read that along with the code of conduct. And including that information in there. So sometimes at the beginning of school, it's a lot of information, but if it's there, then it, again, just reinforces that information for that. Other thoughts people want to add in?
I will just say that,
okay.
real quickly, we will look to have some of this conversation around the student handbook and the code of conduct. The committee end of May, beginning of June for next year to look at this area in particular to add some of this stuff to. Sorry, Hunter.
No. Hunter, go ahead.
Real good. So I'm curious if the like as these kind of plans develop, move forward, would it be in the interest of the board and the parents and the community and everybody involved if there was some sort of student committee put together? Just not to make any action, but just to purely get input. What do the students think about it? It could be made up of upperclassmen, 11th graders, 12th graders. But I'm curious if this is something that the board would like any extra student input on, or if that's something that should just stay kind of out of the realm of influence from the student body.
Well, I definitely have an opinion, but before I state my opinion, which is supposed to be probably no, I'll just open up for everyone else.
I always like the students to be involved, so I'm always going to say yes to that kind of thing.
I come down on the side of yes. I think
student involvement would be helpful.
Jim,
I'd like to communicate about something a little bit.
Jim, I'm sorry, are you responding to Hunter or?
No, I had something I wanted to respond a little bit earlier than Hunter, and it was actually mentioned as far as the notice or the feedback to having something checked out in YA. As we move forward and try to communicate through our softwares, try to get as close to a real-time action as possible so it's not so delayed that maybe the parent, has an option to interact with the child and, before it festers and they're looking for other places. That would be one thing. I did enjoy Ms. Larocca's comment of the broad spectrum of books, not just minimizing or, you had mentioned about some other type of books, Christian books, other type of books. I'm open to that. I think the broadest spectrum available. Obviously, we're not a university. You're limited on space. But having the access to, something to get input in areas when you're age appropriate, I think is best for our kids. As far as the student involvement, I'm usually always with the student involvement. I think this is a tricky situation because I think my daughter is in 8th grade, she's 13. I don't know if a 11th or 12th grader has impact on the decision as a family. However, having the input to communicate with a student group for my daughter to have access to, communicate because they've experienced something, if that's available, I like that idea. On the decision as far as what books, I think that should stay at home with the document and the accessibility based on parents at that age group.
I have a few comments and questions, but I'll start by responding to Hunter. I think now with like you pioneering the role that you're in on the board, that's a natural opportunity for the students to have input. I'm not saying it has to be the only way, but you know, whether it's you or your successor next year, kind of taking the initiative to go and say, hey, there's this concern, does anyone have anything they want me to communicate to the board, or if they just come to you. I think that's a way to do it. And with that, I mean, they can say whatever they want. I mean, I think some things that immediately strike me as potentially being useful to hear. Again, I don't mean that to limit what should be said, but kind of also the view of, you know, what books do you, the students, think are missing? What's not represented here? What is represented here that might not be so obvious to others that it's useful to have or valuable to have? You know, things of that sort. But I know that who knows what other thoughts or concerns students might have. So, again, I just think that's one way to do it. This is a starting point to tee up a couple of questions. I think, you know, I'm hearing that there's kind of two tracks to this. I hear, you know, we're looking at the book selection process and things around that. But separately, there's also discussion of, right now, access to YA books and concerns about having more insight into what's happening and, you know, more parental control. But I think that is clearly related, but it's a different piece of it. And I think it's a piece that I'm glad that we're talking about it tonight, because we should be. Because I think that's something that we can start tackling before some of these other issues with software, big policy changes. So with all that said, a couple questions, no particular order. The emails that we've heard about as getting kicked out to notify that something's been checked out, what triggers that email, and it is still a current practice today, is that correct? Two-part question.
My understanding was that they're not allowed to even take it out. So the permission has to be granted before. But now, is there a need to take that a step further and say, here are the books that are currently out? So it's almost like a part A and a part B is the way I see it. Like, do you?
Yeah, I think that, you know, with any system, it's not foolproof as it currently stands. I think that there needs to be some attention, obviously, to that piece of it. But again, the checking out a YA book and in real time, as Jim mentioned, to be able to get that kind of information back to the parent, I don't know that if it's currently doing that or the capability of that right now.
Right, so that's something. So I guess the email that we were talking about, though, the notice, would be if a student that is under 14 tries to check out a young adult book, there would be so we heard about a notice, an email sent out notifying the parents that the student tried to check out a book. When does that happen exactly? What triggers that email?
I'm not sure if that's currently happening.
No, I think that what was mentioned was that the Friday before break, I think that's where an email went out to parents reminding them that permission must be granted for YA books. And in that included a permission slip for families that wanted to allow their middle school students access to YA books. So it's kind of a blanket permission. Without that, a middle school, any student under a certain age cannot check it out.
I understand, but you, for example, mentioned that your daughter, when she tried to check out a book, you got an email saying your daughter tried to check out this book. What triggered that email?
The librarian. Basically, it was basically she wasn't allowed to take it out.
Okay, because she didn't meet whatever.
The grade, right, exactly.
Does that still happen today? In other words, if a student tries to check out that book that they're not supposed to be able to check out, understanding no system is foolproof, things are going to slip through, but all else equal, will it still trigger an email if it's caught?
I believe so.
My understanding is that it will if it gets caught.
Okay.
Because when you go, like, if you've watched in the library, when a student goes to check it out, they have to scan the book, right? And then your name pops up and everything else. And so a YA, and again, I cannot confirm this, I'm just, when I was watching from the book fair, and I would tell students, that it's all like, sorry, and then it gets scanned, and that's how it's taken out. So you're not allowed to take it out, but we would have to confirm that. So it's all done electronically.
I have a question on that really quick. So they're scanning it, it's going in the computer somewhere in the magical road to the computer. Why can't parents see that? It seems like, I know I don't know anything about technology and websites, but it seems like it can't be that hard.
Right, but currently it's probably a closed system for the library. So the question is that interacting with, well, what other systems is it? Yeah.
So it's a software issue. You're saying that the software just can't automatically.
I think
we're off in the weeds here. Okay. We're going to go through an open forum to try to figure out how best to address the issues. I don't think the issue was about checking it out when permission was on record. I believe if they did not have permission on record, that would trigger a software, but I can't speak to it either, and don't wish to at this point, because I think it's premature. I think we're going to look at this whole thing. But the question really was, are the availability of those books at all? And that's a whole different question that has been raised here a couple of times now by members of the public, okay? So I think we're off in the weeds about how, the minutia about how a child can walk out of here. I heard expressed whether they walk out of here or not, if they're young adult, they could come in and read here every day. They could come in and read it, and that was a question too. So I think that's the bigger question, or at least from my mind, that's what I'm hearing. Yeah. I'm hearing people say they don't want that available to their childs at all, and they want us to come up with a different system that would allow them to opt in of not having their children access that at all.
I understand. I don't think we're in the weeds, and I think this is an appropriate time. There are a lot of questions we have to work through. Part of that is starting with, how do things work now? What's the current process? And then talking about what changes should we make and how. That conversation is better for these meetings than an open forum, where it's more of a discussion with the community. I think it would be better for everyone to go into that meeting having a better understanding what's happening now, what we can do, what our protocols and processes and everything else are, so that when we all get to that discussion, we have a common understanding of what our starting point is. To talk about then what changes, are changes needed, if so, what and how. I mean, for example, my next question, which you might think is in the weeds, but I think is very relevant now, to start discussing, is, we've heard multiple times tonight, we understand the YA category is very broad, and it's likely, I don't know how to characterize it, that there's probably only a relatively small number of books in the YA category that might be of concern to some parents. So, I mean, to your point, Duncan, there's a question of, should those books be in the library at all? There's also a question of if they're in the library, because we've heard from a lot of people on both sides of some should be in, some should be out, there's a lot of different opinions there. So one of the questions then is, you know, if the books stay in the library, is there a way to
Further segment.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I was going to get at, because a parent might look at that, get a better understanding of the YA category and realize maybe 70, 80, maybe 95% of those books are not objectionable and I don't have any problem with, but it's the other part that I am concerned about, and I don't want to, you know, I'd only want to agree to part of it. So how well can we, what are, I think for discussion we need to understand what the options would be, what the capabilities would be to try to further segment the YA books if we wanted to do that within the library.
And all I would say, I totally agree with everything you said. All I'm trying to say is I think that is also a function of what comes out of the open forum. I agree, we better darn well know what we're doing when we go into the open forum, and I hope that would be presented as the framework of here's where we are, okay? Here's what the concerns we've had expressed. What can we put on the table to solve those concerns? Further categorization, whatever it might be, okay? All of those things, I think, should be on the table, okay? So I don't think we have a disagreement here. Maybe poor choice of words on my part, okay?
Thank you.
And if I may, I echo we have to know what we have now. I also understand, you know, what you're saying, Duncan. We're not here tonight just to solve all the software issues or to go off on a tangent and do things. But what we have to have in place is know where we are, if we can't get there with the current systems that we have, what we want, then we need to put things in place in order to get there. With the exception of, I know it was mentioned, one YA book was in a romance section. Maybe, I'm just putting it out there, maybe YA books need to be not so accessible in the library where the librarian has to have access to it. They can get grant access based on a referral or a request from the student as long as they have permission. But there are issues with, you know, parents that the books are on the table and maybe they don't want that. So I'm just saying everything is a multifaceted thing. I think it's a positive thing to take input, and I think we can come up with the best solution possible. But we have to come in with as much information as we have, know where we are, and then be able to change where we're going to hit the broadest spectrum possible. So.
Yes, 2 more questions. Well, question/comment is one thing. So one on the May 30th workshop. I understand, I agree, I think a moderator could be useful. But I think that there are different ways to moderate a discussion like this. And I would just ask that, I don't know how it should be done, but done in a way that's not overly structured and that really tries to maximize time for discussion, some back and forth. Because I don't know how to articulate this well, but my concern is that if the moderator tries to make it too structured, to step us through certain things, then it won't be as good of an actual discussion as opposed to jot down the top 5 concerns on a piece of paper and then let's, you know, hear from each group as to what that is. Maybe that's a fine way to do it, but I just, you know, would ask that it not be too structured to the point of, you know, cutting down on the amount of discussion we can actually have.
So let me ask this. What would you like to see as an outcome for the May 30th workshop?
Honestly, my initial concern is more for the process of it, and the outcome is, the process/outcome is that we go through it and get to the end and feel like we were able to have a really good discussion, a back and forth. I don't know how to moderate that. I'm glad I don't have to figure that out.
No, but
I just want to,
at the end of the day, what do you want to walk out with? Like, how will you know this was a successful workshop? It wasn't. And you can think on it, but I think that that's part of the feedback that all of us need to really think about. What is going to determine, was this a productive workshop? Like, did we achieve what we wanted to?
That's a good question. Thank you. And second question, Mike. Again, there are different elements here with things proceeding at different at different paces. Can you give us, like, just pull it all together and give us a timeline for kind of where we are and where we're heading? I mean, we talk about things, you know, there's certain discussion that's going to happen at the workshop. There are other things that might be dependent on software changes. We might have to talk about, you know, what their options are, or code of conduct changes in the fall. There are a bunch of moving parts. So can you pull it together and give us a timeline of how we're getting from where we are today to whatever the resolution is?
To September, basically.
Sure.
You know, it is hard, as you mentioned. It's a lot of moving parts with a lot of different voices and a lot of different processes that need to be taken a look at. We've talked a lot about book selection, but there's also as we've heard in a number of meetings now, what is that process? And so, you know, defining the process is something that we can do in the very short term in regards to what it's going to now. I think it's a solid point going into the May 30th discussion. Okay, where are we at? What are we currently doing? So that we are better able to figure out how we want to move forward. So there's too many different tentacles to identify a drop-dead time limit on certain things. So again, it's going to continue to be a fluid process in which we're getting more and more input from the community and, you know, professionals who are working in and around this topic. So, you know, ideally by September, it's very clear in code of conduct, student handbook, and on our website, and parents have access to what exactly the process is for book selection and what the process is for taking out books. You know, we've got to take a look at this space in general and say, okay, do we need to modify this space in some way? But we can't do those things until we have an idea of, you know, Tracy said, what is the outcome? What is the end goal that we're looking for? And I think it's kind of somewhat of a broad topic right now as we move closer to the two main ideas is book selection and process. To me are the two big things right now we have to nail down.
I have a quick question, and you might not have the answer, but I think that parents don't deal well with losing control of their children, and what can parents who are concerned do now? Like, we keep asking them to wait, and they feel very strongly about this. What can they do now to prevent their children from accessing these books? Just email the librarian, or?
Yeah, I think Tracy mentioned it earlier. If there are concerns with some books that you don't want your children to have access to, you know, to let the librarian know. We are not seeing a lot of these books coming off the shelves right now. They're not being checked out. So it is a concern, and I understand, you know, parents' concerns, and on both sides, as Jay mentioned, to this topic. That may be the first step, is if parents are feeling strongly that they do not want their children to have access to these books, it's that conversation with the library media specialists.
So at a minimum, send an email to the librarian.
That seems to be the point of where our books are being taken out and looked at, sure.
Sorry, one last thing. And it's kind of just to go back to that idea of the student committee, if there's any more board input on whether you think that should be something that happens or not, because then again, like I hear all these points, and on one hand, I could see how it may be beneficial to say, hey, maybe there's students that want to see these books come to the library that are here, or maybe not, like, or maybe I don't want to see these. But I also see the other side of that as well, in that this is very much, I think, an issue that that is, I guess, the people that I think personally, at least, that have the most input on this issue and what the students are reading is very much the parents, right? The parents have a lot of the control over and influence, and rightly so, over their kids. So I understand that point too, and that maybe it's not the place of the students to have, you know, that level of input on this topic. And maybe on different topics, it's maybe more valuable to have student input. but I also understand that there are times where maybe it should be left to like adult discussion, if that makes any sense. And you know, I value both of those, so I just ask for any more board input, but also during the last open forum, if there are any parents that have any like recommendations towards this, I'd love to hear it. So thank you.
As far as books?
Not necessarily books, but maybe like moving forward with like the idea of the committee and what that would kind of like look like. Should it happen? Shouldn't it happen? That kind of thing.
So would you be looking for them to send you an email? How should they communicate with you?
I think so. You know, if any parents at the at the open forum at the end want to communicate that, and I'll take notes down here. But also, I'll just mention like my school email if they want to. You know, if parents want to email me directly. And it's pretty much the basic school email. It's smigelh, SMIGELH @greenvillecsd.org. So that's that. If any parents want to reach out to me that way as well. And maybe it'd be cool to have something done by, excuse me, that May 1st or May 30th deadline, where that kind of big forum is going to be, and that way we can maybe have just some student input there if that's the direction we want to take it.
If I could make a suggestion, I would encourage you to back up. If you want to have the final date, if the workshop is May 30th, you're going to want to have the feedback at least 2 weeks before that. You would ask one of the, so I would suggest a May 15th deadline, just to give you the flexibility to then assimilate everything and perhaps categorize it. You had asked for board feedback. I personally am kind of like Angela, and I always like to know what the students have to say. There may be some specific questions that I could formulate. Let me think them over, that feedback, and one of the ones that comes to mind just off the top of my head is when the students are here, whether they're accessing materials or so forth. So how do they access it and so forth. I would be more interested, I would think, at high school level, probably juniors and seniors. Again, students tend to have very strong opinions, is my experience, but I think that we can learn a lot from them. And students see things a different way that sometimes adults do, and so their perceptions are valid, not to take away from parental control or anything else, but kind of they're here day to day in the library for that, but I'll share whatever questions I come up with everyone. Did anyone else want to answer Hunter's question?
I'm going to ask him a question first. Hunter, you asked if you wanted board input. Do you really want board input?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
Okay, so this is myself as an individual on the board. I don't want you ever to ask for board input again. I want you to have your own opinions. I want you to make your own decisions. I want you to understand that if you want our advice or suggestions, that's different. But you don't have to ask. You've got your own mind. Use it. Make your decisions. If you want to go back to your student body and ask and do stuff and then come back here and tell us, that's fine.
Thank you.
And I'll second that, or as I seconded Angela's, because I thought that was similar. That was basically what he was asking us in the first place. Did he want to get from the upperclassmen their opinions of these issues? But I have one real reservation, and that is, I don't think we should put on a young man or any other individual part of this body the collection process of the community. So rather than sending those comments or concerns, if there are specific issues that should be covered in the open forum, as he volunteered to collect from the community, I think they should come to the administration, not to Hunter. I don't want to put that on a young man who's still going through his senior in high school.
wonder if I can just have 2 more sentences. I generally agree with, I think, everything that's been said, and just, going off on a little bit of a tangent here, I think that, for what you're doing, obviously you're in a new role. You're still, everyone's, I think, still trying to figure out what it is and what it can be, right? And, I agree that if you want opinion and feedback, you can ask for it, but, you're here as, your own, as yourself to represent the student body. To a certain extent, I don't think there's anything particular that you have to or don't have to do or try to take on like this. On the other hand, I think you can, say, whether it's this issue or something else, I think this is a priority, or at least something I need to ask students about and get some feedback. And, if I decide it should be discussed at the board, then to bring it up, that way. So it's a way of saying I don't want to put on you saying, yes, I think you should go back and talk to the students and try to get some feedback from them. I think it could be helpful, but again, I think to a certain extent, you and the students who follow you in the role have an opportunity to try to define in your own particular way, what it is that you're doing and how you're contributing to the overall process, if that makes sense. Yeah.
We're telling you to stop being so polite.
Any other comments or anything related to this? Go ahead, David.
First of all, Hunter, you're on the board. So you can ask for our input, but you are part of the board now. I have some clarification questions about what's currently going on to address what you were talking about, Jim. The permission slip the list that is generated from the permission slips, I'm assuming that that's addressed when a student comes with a YA book prepared to check it out. Do you know, Mike?
Clarify that.
If a student takes home this permission slip,
correct,
and mom and or dad or a guardian signs it, thus giving permission to have that student look at or check out these YA books, it must generate a list of students that have that permission, correct? Or tell me how it works.
I don't know if it will generate, because of privacy issues, what the student's book is. I'll have to get clarification on that.
Okay. Some of the technical issues that Angela was talking about, I have heard that some schools have the capability to, if you use your student ID at the cafeteria and your account is low, boom, mom or dad get an email. So certainly we may not have that software yet for the library, but I would think that would be certainly a level of notification that I would prefer. So this topic for me boils down to availability of material and whether or not we're going to create a plan that's going to adjust that or not, and then access to all that material, and whether or not the access is in this room or being checked out, and then notification, and how much notification is desired. One of the things that I'm having taught, almost 5,000 kids, we can't develop a policy or a procedure that's really going to cut down on curiosity. And that concerns me because I don't want to develop a plan or process that's going to generate more curiosity. I may be way off on that, but that's a concern that we need to think about. The other thing that is a bigger concern to me is if we're developing a plan or adjusting what is currently in place, and a plan has been shared with us, I am glad to hear that it doesn't look like we're going to have a plan, share it at the open forum, listen to the comments, and move forward with our plan. I hope our plan is to have a plan, share it with the community before the forum, so that, and share it with us. We know what's going on, or what we're thinking about. The community knows what's going on and what we're thinking about. And then we can have an adult conversation with a moderator or with not, to adjust that plan to fit as many circumstances as possible. Whether or not we want to have a wide open plan or a plan that's more restrictive, that needs to be resolved. Tracy, you asked me what we want at the end of the 30th. It is the 30th, right? That is what I would think to be a successful forum. If we had going in with some ideas, some general ideas, even if they're what we have to do based on parameters, law, whatever. And then what our community desires, all sides of the community. And then that will be a tough decision for us to make, but I'm glad that I hope I'm hearing that that's the way it's going to be. We're not going to share what we've decided. We're going to have input and then hopefully make it work. So, to address what Hunter had said, if you know of students that really have serious concerns or would like to share their personal experience with this topic, I would say come to the open forum. They don't have to speak, but they can certainly be present. It might be good for them.
Any other comments, or if not, I'm going to move this along.
Can the librarian be present for that open forum, or maybe at the next? I think she could answer a lot of the questions on the process that's in order right now. I think she should have probably been present here today. I couldn't make the PTSA meeting where she was a special guest, but I sure wish I had. And also, do you have a time for the open forum on the 30th? I didn't catch a time.
The workshop was envisioning in the evening, so we have not said an exact time.
So that'll be posted once you lock them?
Yes, we just went through and selected the date for that. So I think to that point, then including the librarian would be helpful for that. All right, so then I'm going to move us on then to the Board of Education goals. So for this one, I just wanted to mention it's getting to be that time of year where we need to start thinking about, number one, an evaluation of the 6 goals that we put in place. Have we accomplished them? And then the second part is start thinking about next year's goals. So we've gone through and added in a evening workshop for the end of July. Right now, well, one of the questions was, do we do it on a Saturday or do we just do it in an evening? And the feeling being that during the summertime, probably an evening would be better than taking a Saturday in the summer. So unless anyone feels very strongly otherwise, we right now have it scheduled for July 31st at 6 p.m.
Thank you for not doing it on a Saturday.
Okay. So really this was the first year that the Board of Ed had goals, and so I think that part of it is taking a look, assessing how we did and for self-evaluation, and then do we want to continue, do we want to adopt new goals and so forth. The way I would envision it is that our pillars will not change. So the 3 pillars, whether it's the transparency, accountability, and the analysis, but the actual elements underneath it, as we accomplish some items, then are there new ones that roll on? So that's all I had for the goals, unless anyone else had anything. Okay, and then the draft school calendar. Is this one the school calendar, which is also based on, no?
That's the school
that's the
calendar,
board ed.
is our school calendar where we start and all the vacations and.
So Mike, did you want to talk about that one?
Not a lot more to say other than it is leap year next year for those folks who didn't realize that we have a February 29th next year. And Labor Day falls earlier in the school year, so there is some flexibility. I know that Mr. Reed and the team spend a great deal of time taking a look at how do we fit our days that we're required to have within that calendar. There is a bit more flexibility in this upcoming school calendar that will allow for some days where we traditionally haven't had off, that we will be able to have off. So Good Friday, I believe, being one of them, the day before Thanksgiving being one of them. And then I believe there was another day around Memorial Day that we are able to have. So that's kind of a nice confluence of things
Yeah,
happening.
Friday before Memorial Day, isn't it?
Yep, yep, so.
I see no reason not to go ahead with this as planned.
It'll be on the next agenda for approval.
All right, and then the other one being the draft Board of Ed schedule on it. And here, some of the changes that we added in, the one that I just mentioned for July 31st for our leadership goals. And this also is ahead of the administrative retreat in August. The other change that we kind of made was that on February 10th, which is a Saturday, but it's in the winter, Angela, that having that day for a mid-year analysis, and then instead of having the mid-year analysis during the February board meeting, really have it focus with extended time on that on February 10th. So that was one of the changes that we're proposing. I think the rest of it is very similar to what we've had this year.
So I think it would be great to have the longer, take more time to work through that mid-year data. Just to clarify though, at the board meeting, I assume maybe after that Saturday deep dive on it, will there be any sort of, will there be a presentation? There will still be a presentation on it, right? More summary presentation for us, for the public, or no? Is that not planned?
Well, one thing is that the mid-year analysis, because we're discussing school information, is public. So part of the thought was right now the administrators kind of had to do a double presentation, if you remember this year. So the idea being that focus it more on one day with extended time so that we don't have to duplicate it. So the thinking was no, but if there's a need at a summary level, we can add it in. But it would be, I think it would be important to take part of the elements from the presentation, not have to reinvent the wheel. Because that's really not fair to be able to have to turn it around and ask for 2 separate presentations with a lot of information.
No, that's fair, and I don't want to duplicate work, and we can table and talk about it later. I think what triggered the concern really is just if we're doing a Saturday deeper dive, that's not really a great time for public participation, or anyone really probably getting up to watch or listen, if it'll even be that type of meeting. So it's more just trying to make sure that the summary information of the school performance, on like reading and math, for example, which I think is really important for everyone to be able to follow, that there's that data will still be posted with the board meeting materials with an opportunity for people to see it. Whether or not there needs to be even a short discussion around some executive summary type format, or maybe something more than executive summary, I don't know what it should be. Again, we can table it for later. Just wanted to ask the question and say, have a potential concern.
And to that point, on the end of June, we do have the end of year report, comprehensive report. So right now on the calendar as well as this year. So it's really the mid-year one. Okay.
Right.
All right, so then we have the first reading of policy 6320, which is a pre-referral intervention strategies in response to intervention. Like, I have your name for that.
Yeah, and it's really just adding the districts.
Right.
Two
For that.
words to that policy for intervention strategies in response to intervention.
So then this would be the first reading, and then we have to have 2 readings, correct? So then next month would be the second reading for it. So really the only change was we added in the words "the district."
Can I ask a question? Was that an omission at one point, or was it just a wordsmith issue that it was forgotten? Or
Just adding that, we want to make sure that.
I know why we're doing the readings, because we have to. But
Right.
The districts, I mean, was it?
Yeah, we want to make sure it's a little clearer and that we add that to make sure that we're aware that that's the situation when it comes to response to intervention.
Okay.
And now there was some discussion about rescinding policy 8160, which is our policy regarding dogs on school property. Over it, Mike.
Yeah, so we had some discussion in our policy meeting in regards to the use of spaces and dogs out on the fields after hours and things like that. And we felt as though that as a community space, it'd be to have a policy forbidding dogs on those spaces just seemed a little antiquated. So we want to rescind that policy.
So I guess we're really just asking the board, is there anyone that feels strongly to keep that policy of not allowing dogs on campus?
I mean, I can see the issue if someone is harmed by a dog on campus. Does that fall on us? Otherwise, who doesn't like seeing a dog at a game or wherever you are?
Yeah, and again, I think that we're not immune to a wild dog or a dog getting off its leash. Because during the school day, nobody's supposed to be on campus other than employees or students, faculty and staff. But it's really those after hours, whether it's at games and things like that. But we want to make sure that we are, understanding that people want to bring their pets to games and things like that. We don't want to have to police that or negate opportunity to have an owner and their dogs attend some of their children's events, or if they're just on a weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday, and they're going to go up and walk the track or up in the fields.
I remember when we adopted this policy, we were concerned about defecation and other things related to dogs being on the property and what. If we just rescind this now, which I'm kind of in favor of, okay, how do we get across to the public that if they're going to walk the dogs here or bring them to an event, that it's their responsibility to take care of any doggy doo-doo? Or don't, for that matter.
And I remember also when it was put in place, because people were not having their dogs on leash at games, and there were literally dog fights.
Right.
So. But you can do what we can rescind it.
Well, I think if we don't rescind it, then we need to start policing it.
And we just have rules about it? Like keep your dog on a leash and clean up after it?
I think I have a dog and we walk in neighborhoods and there's signs posted in those neighborhoods to please pick up after your dog. We could take a look at putting them out in the field as well.
Leash laws, I mean, it's already in then fly across school.
Well said.
It's already a law, you can put it in your policy.
Well, if we rescind the policy but have rules, we don't need a policy, we don't need a separate policy for that, right? Decide there are reasonable rules, we need to
Correct.
do it. Okay. Good.
All right, then I'm going to move this on to the action items. I need a motion to approve the minutes for the business meeting of March 20th.
Eric, Angela, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending March 31st, 2023.
Eric, Angela, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Angela, Eric, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? I'm going to recuse myself from this vote as I tutor some students. All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Duncan and Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the revised 2022-2023 school district calendar.
Eric, Jim.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to adopt the 2023-2024 proposed school budget.
Duncan and Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hang on, I need hands, because I have to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and Duncan?
What? I have my hands up front.
Okay.
And all opposed?
All opposed? I need a motion to approve the real property tax report card 2023-2024 submission to the State of Education Department.
Angela and Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve, the cooperative purchasing, the generic resolution, and the cafeteria supplies and food bin resolution between the Greenville Central School District and the Delaware, Chinago, Madison, Otsego, BOCES for the school year 2023-2024. That is 6.8, 6.9, and 6.10.
Duncan and Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I need a motion to award the bid for RMB Mechanical Inc. in the amount of $294,000 and Stilsing Electrical Inc. in the amount of $57,467 for the work at the middle school, high school desk collector replacement project.
Eric, I need a second. Jim, thank you.
Any discussion?
Yeah. So those numbers, per my question earlier in the meeting, if that does not include the air handler, Jim, do you know if those two figures are strictly for the dust collector?
That does, my understanding, that does include the air handler in there since the air is needed, since you're removing the air for dusty air,
So that would add those two numbers together and that's the total?
That's my understanding, yes.
Then that would be less than what we approved months ago.
Yes.
Now I really thank you, Jim.
And I do want to add one thing is, by going through this process, a lot of people in the community, myself included, I was, how do I say, I was welcomed by the SEI to take input. It wasn't a flat wall. With this being said, it was a system that we wanted to put in for Greenville, not just put in a system that said XYZ school and let's just go throw it in here and plug it in and see how much it works. They were open to the opportunity to talk what we needed. And I implored the time. I know Tracy put a lot of time in it, Mike, and got, Janet, a lot of people on this, and I just want to thank everyone else's time for me being a little OCD, I guess. So thank you.
Absolutely, and I think in the end, it just makes the process better for them. Did we vote on it? Yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and the Schoolhouse Construction Services LLC for the construction management services for the 2022 capital improvement project.
Eric, can you a second? Jim, thank you.
Any discussion?
One question on this. I thought we had approved the management of this project in an earlier meeting. Or did we table and move it to now?
We approved SEI.
Right,
In
we
that
just got the
contract.
contract from Schoolhouse.
Okay.
That's what we're approving.
All right.
But we have mentioned Schoolhouse previously about them winning the award.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the health and welfare services contract between the Greenville Central School District and the South Colony School District for the 22-23 school year.
Eric and Duncan?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to extend the contract between the Greenville Central School District and Higher Physical Therapy for physical therapy services from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Angela and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Dave?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now, topics for discussion at a future meeting. Before we do that, one thought is that this is about the time when we would have Hunter then give an update at times where you want. So this would kind of where we would do. If that works for everyone, we can try it and so forth. Okay. Does anyone have any items for future meeting?
I kind of like a recap of how many students we have applied for external programs and how many get into them, whether that be Questars programs, New Vision, STEM, just for an overall understanding. How many kids have been interested? How many kids are getting in? Is that because we only have so many slots, or is it because the kids don't measure up to the standards that the facility wants? Just for a good understanding of that. And whether, I guess from that, whether or not there would be any recommendation from the administration as to whether or not we should take some kind of action to broaden that horizon.
Yeah, we do have the numbers of each of those programs in which our students go out to. I believe that was part of our February or March presentation, so we can get you those numbers. We'll have to figure out, we can probably get you the numbers of how many folks applied to the different programs. And it is a competitive, most of those programs are competitive because we're dealing with the other 27 schools in the 3 counties that are sending kids.
I just want to better understand. I just want to better understand how competitive is one thing. Is it because they only have so many slots? Just like, we only have room for so many students, so we're going to give you 2 slots.
That's generally the way it works, yep.
But an overcap, thank you.
Does that also include for some of the CTE and the BOCES programs that it's X amount? I know that does occur for Tech Valley.
Right.
That's a lottery system, but I was curious, like, let's say the heavy equipment.
Yeah, so each school is not given a certain amount necessarily, but it is, they are capped in regards to how many kids they can enter into the programs, because again, like the school, like any school, they have to be able to have enough student interest to hire teachers for those programs. So they usually have a set number of slots available to the different schools that are sending students. But I can get more detail as far as what does that look like for Greenville kids.
I just had interactions with some of the kids going to the heavy equipment, and I was wondering if there seemed to be quite a bit of interest, and I'm wondering if we're being in any way hamstrung, and whether or not we should be lobbying for our, Mike, not to put anything on your shoulders, you have a few, but between you and your other superintendents for lobbying for more space, if necessary, on any of these programs, not just that. The culinary student we've had in the past have been great. Are there enough slots there for those kids that want to go that way? So.
Yeah, and again, I think it would be easy enough to get an idea from our counselors in regards to how many kids apply, to see if there is a reason to, as you say, lobby Questar to create more spaces.
Spread it out.
Right. Yep.
Well, exactly to that point about the heavy equipment, they are expanding that in a new facility further north.
Right.
So, because it is so popular.
Yeah. But our kids won't be going there.
Hopefully not. I mean, we would have
Yeah.
the current, there's no need in the sense, well, I don't want to misstate that. So, Caroderm is where it currently is for that. I think that it was, they look at the geography and everything. Any other topics?
Yep. Tracy, in response to your email or text, I forget which it was, I'm waiting for a response from Questar to, we're going to visit Tech Valley and I believe it's not Klein, it's one of the other sites.
The down on Klein Technical, Hunter, that's where you go, correct?
Yeah, I visited that one.
Yeah.
What's the other facility that's similar to, geez, you think I know? But we're going to visit 2 sites in one day. They're just setting it up for me now. If anybody else has, they're going to give me 2 dates. So if we can make that, because of the time frame and the end of the year coming quick, I said just give us 2 dates and we'll work around it. And then the other thing I wanted to share with the board was I was able to go visit the clay shooting team during their 2nd or 3rd practice, and what I saw was very pleasing. Boys and girls were highly engaged, acting very responsible and very safe. I think that Sarah is doing a phenomenal job with those boys and girls. They do a lot of shooting. There's a couple of girls that are on the team, and I kind of feel sorry for anybody that shoots 50 rounds in an hour and a half. Is quite a bit. Also, the gun club that we're using, they have members there that are volunteering their time to assist with that and give the kids a lot of pointers on performance and on safety and confidence on how to become successful at that. And the other thing is Sarah's doing a great job PRing it. I know you have noticed it on Facebook, and she's so proud of what she's accomplished so far. If you get a chance, if you're interested, go take a look. They got some competitions coming up first. There you go, Hunter. Now it's your turn.
Thanks, Dave. I'd also be interested in seeing, of the students that are participating, are there any that do not currently participate in other events? Because I think one of the selling points was that there would help create a community and for students that aren't as actively engaged.
There was one kid, I don't know his name, that wasn't there when I was there because he was in the play. So, no, she was in the play, actually. So, you know, if they can cross over, that's awesome. Multiple interests.
Yeah, so I've got a little report to share, well, I guess a little 3-page report from the different, so I guess for context, I pretty soon after getting this position, I sent out sent out a survey to the middle schoolers and high schoolers, and I asked 4 pretty open-ended questions, but I guess like as we kind of talked about tonight with this position, we're all kind of learning about what this position kind of entails and really like the direction that it should go in. So I sent out this survey, and I received 33 responses, which I wasn't really sure how many to expect, but I think it's a pretty good number. And I determined what's going to be shared out on this survey, really based on like the most reoccurring answers. So what things I saw show up most often or that seemed to be most pressing. And I also think I should point out that not all of these responses, I think, are necessarily able to be handled directly by the Board of Education, but are more just like general student comments, if that makes sense. So my first question was, what is something or things that you have seen the school do well or appreciate? And the overwhelming response to this question was how students appreciate the teachers and staff here at Greenville. And part of the reason for this is that teachers and staff are engaging with the students and are personable with the students. Students appreciate that teachers are genuinely invested in them, and they appreciate different things like the care closet and the school making an effort to take care of those who may be struggling. Students appreciate the variety of extracurricular activities and sports offered to them. This is important because most students can find an extra activity that they can do after school, before school, whatever it may be, and enjoy. Students also appreciate extra activities like fundraisers put on by clubs and other activities like school dances. My second question was, what is a long-term problem or long-term change that you would like to see at the school or come to the school or, like I said, change? So I had to break this down into a few categories because there was quite a few responses. But the first one was in sports. Students at Greenville would like to see an increased variety of sports added. And I included in here the use of the weight room, which I know was discussed. A sport recommended that I saw pop up time and time again in the addition of, or in this survey, it popped up quite often, was football. Students believe that with the current infrastructure and facilities in place, and with a few additions, we can make this long-term recommendation a reality. The second one, I know we were talking about like the weight room earlier. Has been further recommended by the student body that the weight room be open longer in the day and allow students to use it in addition to sports and PE, and potentially open it to the public, like I said, mentioned. And other sports were mentioned too. The sports of hockey, archery, lacrosse, and this one would require a pool, but a swim team. So that one. But I guess I just added back in there that the overwhelming majority of like those types in the sports category was for football. In the category of extracurricular activities, students would like to see the addition of a debate team as an extracurricular activity. Students would like to encourage more events like pep rallies and school dances like the formals and semi-formals. Because I know like obviously the one big dance at the end of the year is the prom, but I think students would like to see a little bit more of those activities as well. So a quick note, extracurriculars and activities and sports are such an important part of students' experiences in school. And school may be primarily a place of education, but it provides so much more for students, like developing social skills and finding new interests and passions. This is where extracurricular activities and sports start to come into play in a student's school experience. While many students are self-motivated to be engaged in class, the reality is for many students, sports and extracurricular activities are like the real motivation to be motivated in the classroom. Due to this, I recommend that the Board of Education heavily considers those recommendations in the extracurriculars and sports category. Next in that section was more classes, and something that was brought up was languages. While there may have not been any specific examples of classes to add, it was recommended that Greenville expand into more areas than just Spanish and Latin, and also for more elective choices for career paths after high school. And the topic of, so the next two, I did get quite a few responses talking about bullying and vaping and things like that that are going on in school. Students have expressed that at the school we have no tolerance policy for actions like bullying and fights and so on, but a lot of times these activities still do occur, and students, from what I received in the survey, are recommending that maybe punishment increase for the actions. And while we say no tolerance policy, take more actions for that no tolerance. When it comes to vaping, many students have expressed deep and extensive concerns about the amount of vaping in the school. I know this is something that has been looked into before, but I can't stress enough that when I hear stories about kids who decide not to use the bathroom because there are students vaping inside, it certainly raises concerns. Students are often put in tough situations because on one hand, they can use the restroom, but some may have the fear of guilty by association. And on the other hand, they may not report the behavior out of fear of their peers' perception of them. Thinking things like, am I a snitch if I report this behavior? So students are requesting that more action be taken to remove this issue. And there was actually the last part of this question too, was for inspirational projects. And I thought this was a really cool idea that a student pointed out in the survey. A student expressed a great idea of having posters and paintings around the school that have inspirational and uplifting messages or quotes, and they recommended that these would be like good student projects in like an art class or things like that, but having some of these uplifting messages. So the third question, what is a short-term issue or problem that you see that has like a quick fix? And just to point this out, a lot of them were reoccurring from the long term, but some students, I guess, have a different perception of what is a long-term issue and a short-term issue. So this one's a little bit shorter. In the cafeteria, students recommend a few changes to the cafeteria and lunches to improve experiences. So some students recommend like a coffee cart or something like that. The snack stand that was previously in the school before COVID be brought back. Survey for student lunches. Finding a way to reduce the cost or institute free school lunches. Students have expressed interest in bringing back school assemblies. These, according to students, would help build a stronger sense of community. New furniture in upgrading older like metal seats and things like that. New clubs like archery club and chess club, as I mentioned earlier, and other comments included classes that utilize more library time, and the Fit for Life class to combine some of its time with the facts department for a deeper education of nutrition. And the fourth and final question was any additional comments that can be, that are just general comments for the board. And the first question was, is there a way to make the information discussed at the Board of Education meetings more accessible and understandable for the students? Positive feedback was on the survey for trying to get more of the students' voices heard. Some students would like the, one student said, and it's kind of thank you to everybody, and I quote, "Thank you for all that you do for our school. It can be a thankless job, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their personal lives to help out at the school." So that's what I have for that student survey. I'm sorry that it was like super long, but I wanted to make sure that as many of those ideas, perspectives were out there, so that way these things can kind of be addressed in the future. So thank you.
Hunter, a quick question. You mentioned 33 responses. How many did you send out? Is it 33 out of junior and seniors or just seniors?
So that would be 33 responses out of the entire middle school and high school.
Okay.
What was the duration that it was open?
It is actually still open now. So it's running and it is continually open now.
Thank you so much, that was amazing, and you're living up to way more than we thought you could ever be. So, I don't know who comes next, but you're setting the bar really high.
Yeah, thanks. That was a lot of great information. It was definitely a lot for us to think about, so thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. Just a couple of quick reminders. We have Tuesday, April 25th at 5 p.m. We have the BOCES annual election and vote. So has anyone responded or RSVP to Daphne to let them know if you'll be in attendance?
No, I'll post the agenda tomorrow for it.
Okay.
I don't need.
But just want to make sure that we have a quorum.
Yeah, I usually have to have a quorum.
And Hunter, if you didn't hear about, probably didn't send one to Hunter, but you can't vote on this, so you don't have, it's about 2-minute vote, 2-minute meeting.
But if you'd like to come and look and see what it's like, I'm more than welcome.
The only thing I'll say is be there exactly at 5 because it's a very quick meeting.
It's probably over by 5:03.
Exactly. Then we see annual budget, vote, and election dates. We had today, the nominating petitions were due at 5 p.m. So we have May 2nd, the annual budget hearing at 6:30, the middle school, high school auditorium. On May 3rd, we have voter registration, 3 to 7 p.m. at the district office. May 16th is the actual vote from 1 to 9. I had a question for absentee ballots. When are they available?
I will have the candidate order tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I'll pull the names. And so from there, then I can generate the ballot. So probably by Friday, I should be able to have the ballot done.
Okay, and how many people do we have running?
We have 4.
Okay. For how many seats?
2.
Okay. All right. And then the last reminder is June 12th. That is our next business meeting. Closing open forum. So please note the same guidelines apply as stated during the first open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
I have one email.
Oh, before you do, if we could read the email. Thank you. You can just come up and.
I was going to say, I'm so glad you walked in because it's a really long email to read. But I have a small one to read right now, and then we can go in order. This one's from, no, this is from a different person that sent it in actually last week, and it's really pretty quick. To Superintendent Bennett and the Board of Education, we understand that the district is in the process of developing a policy for selecting books that will be available to students in the district libraries. We encourage you to provide opportunities for students to have access to literature that they can connect to. This means having a collection of books that is inclusive of many different thoughts and lifestyles. Any type of censorship or book banning doesn't provide freedom to learn, to develop respect for self and others, or teach about diversity. Any parent who doesn't want their student reading specific books has the freedom to make their own choices for their own family according to their values. Please do not allow opportunities for everyone else who attends GCS to be restricted or to miss out on opportunities to learn more about kindness and compassion by banning books. And that email was from William and Jeanette Rice. Thank you.
And if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Susanna Friedman, and sorry, I forgot to ask you to read my letter.
Turn the blue button on.
Can you, yes, thank you.
Is that better? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Susanna Friedman, and I forgot to ask my letter to be read into the record. So I just wanted to reflect a couple of comments that I had shared with the board for the record. But also just in advance of that, wanted to say, having reflected upon the discussion you've had this evening and upon the upcoming workshop on May 30th, I hope that there is going to be some forethought put into place about how to ensure that the voices and opinions of parents and community members who can't attend that meeting will be included. Because not everyone can attend an evening meeting. People have to line up sitters if they're parents, maybe they have to work. And also, it's not always the loudest voices in the room that represent the majority of opinions. Sometimes it's important to listen to the voices you don't hear. And so I think that there needs to be some thought put into how to not only moderate and facilitate that discussion, but also how to ensure that it is representative of a variety and inclusive of a variety of opinions. I think it's clear to all of us that there's a real, there's a lot of diversity in opinion on this issue and people feel strongly. So some thought ahead of time on how to capture that would probably be useful. Oops. Sorry, my battery died, so I had to send my letter to somebody else. All right. Okay. So just reflecting, I won't read the entire letter. It's about the book issue. And my position is that there should be a variety of books available, and I am concerned that those books need to continue to be available, even if they make some parents uncomfortable. By removing or placing inappropriate restrictions on books dealing with themes related to LGBTQ, gender, and sexuality issues, and I think we need to be really clear here that all of the titles raised to date deal with those themes. The school district will send the message that there is something deviant and dangerous about that content. This will have a chilling effect, not only for young people, but also for faculty and librarians. While I'm not aware of any specific polls of residents in our district on this issue, national polls, and I can share those with you, have demonstrated time and again that the vast majority of Americans oppose book bans in public libraries. Parents have the right to guide their own children's reading. They do not, however, have the right to determine what other children can read. Reading is a foundational part of learning and exploring the world. Limiting students' access to books does not protect them from the challenges they will face in life. As long as the content available is age appropriate, and I understand that there is some debate about what constitutes age appropriateness. As long as the content available is age appropriate, students have the right to make decisions about what they read and the beliefs they develop. We should trust them to do so. I urge GCSD leadership to adhere to existing protocols that ensure age-appropriate materials are available for students in the district. In considering any new protocols, please ensure a thoughtful and systematic approach that is based on professional guidance and best practice. As a parent in this district, it's important to me that my children are prepared for the world in which I live, including the parts of it that may feel uncomfortable or messy for some people. I urge you to reject any efforts to ban or limit books in our district, and to continue to provide an inclusive educational experience, including in the library, so that all students can explore, learn, and grow. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel DeLong. First I want to apologize that I'm arriving very late. I was at a play rehearsal that just got over, so I was glad to hear there was still an opportunity to talk. This is very loud. So I understand that the topic of restricting access to books in our library has continued to be discussed at tonight's meeting, and I already shared some of my thoughts on this last month, and I just want to add a few things. I mentioned last month I'm a parent of 3 children, 2 have graduated from Greenville schools, and my daughter is currently a high school junior. And I'm also a public health physician. I've worked for the Health as Maternal and Child Health with inclusive of adolescent health and positive youth development. So I know that there are parents who are calling for certain books to be removed or for access to certain books to be restricted to students based on their age or grade level or parent permission or some combination of these. And I have not seen a complete list of books. I know that 2 titles that have been raised are Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe and All Boys Ain't Blue by George M. Johnson. There may be others. I actually think it would be very helpful in terms of having an open dialogue for the community to be aware of which specific titles parents or community members may have called for removal or restricted access. But given the titles that I have heard, it's not surprising that these titles are being targeted. These are among on all the lists of books that have been the most challenged and the most banned across the country. These books are always at the top of the list. And as Susanna just noted, The large proportion of books that have been banned or challenged nationwide include authors or characters or themes related to sex, sexuality, gender, gender identity, race and racism, or combinations of these things. Even if efforts at our local level may be framing these as personal concerns, I think that it is imperative for us as educators to recognize that there are similar efforts going on around the country that are part of larger political movements and agendas that are being waged against marginalized groups of people, people who have been systematically marginalized. And at a community level and an individual level, we should be deeply concerned about any efforts to erase the voices and experience of young people by removing books that represent them or that speak to them. I understand, or we may have heard some parents say that information they've read in some of these books that relates to sex, sexuality, or gender identity, they're calling it pornography. They may say that these books are grooming young people. And I really want to be clear that I think these are baseless arguments, and they're also not new arguments. These reflect age-old homophobic and transphobic themes and rhetoric that have attempted to paint LGBTQ people as pedophiles, which is absolutely ridiculous. Pornography is material that is intended to stimulate sexual arousal and erotic response, that is its purpose. Rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. And the books that we're talking about are about people's experiences and relate extensively, and I would say really primarily to aesthetic art, literature, and to people's emotional feelings. The fact that a book acknowledges human sexuality or describes sexual activity does not make it pornographic or obscene. Sexuality is part of human development, and adolescence is a period of human development marked by rapid change, experience and exploring new ideas, and forming a sense of positive identity and self-determination. 30 years of scientific research overwhelmingly demonstrates that comprehensive sexuality education that acknowledges a broad definition of sexual health and takes a positive, affirming, inclusive view of sexual identity and human sexuality helps to lower the risk of risky sexual activity, STDs, HIV, unintended pregnancy. It can reduce homophobia and homophobic-related bullying, improve knowledge and skills that support healthy relationships, and reduce dating and intimate partner violence. And I would be happy to share references from public health and medical literature on this with anyone who's interested. And I just want to reiterate that we should be very concerned about efforts to erase the voices and experiences of young people by removing books that represent or speak to them. And I cannot say this better than Hudson spoke last month, but it is voices like Hudson's that need to be centered and amplified in this discussion. And I think it is worth noting that both the books that I mentioned are memoirs. This is not pornography, this is not obscenity. These are people writing about their own life experiences and sharing it with young and emerging adults and adolescents. To characterize people's life experiences as pornography is to discredit, marginalize, and attempt to erase the lived experiences of real people. These and other books were chosen appropriately by our school librarian because they have literary and educational value for students. And I want to read from the foreword to All Boys Aren't Blue in George M. Johnson's own words, where they write, "In writing this book, I wanted to be as authentic and truthful about my experience as possible. The truth of the matter is, these things happened to me when I was a child, teenager, and young adult. So as heavy as these subjects may be, it is necessary that they are not only told, but also read by teens who may have to navigate many of these same experiences in their own lives." I won't repeat the points because I think others have made them about censorship, and I know we've gone over that. But I want to say that I think a library is a really important place in the community, and a school library in particular. School libraries play a critical role in protecting and promoting and educating students about intellectual freedom. They're a critical point of access to information and ideas, They need to be a place where students can explore that information and ideas, acquire and apply critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills, and learn more about themselves and also about others. And that, for me, is at the core of being a member of a diverse, pluralistic, and equitable society. And the last thing I want to say is something I mentioned last week and have read more on, or last month, sorry. I imagine this might be a really tough position for a school board and school administrators to navigate, and I think fortunately we really don't need to create a new framework. The Supreme Court ruled, I think 40 years ago, that books may not be removed from library shelves just because school officials find ideas in the books offensive. We also have clear guidance in the Library Bill of Rights from the American Library Association, which has been explicitly interpreted both for minors and for school libraries specifically. And so we should not attempt to rewrite or ignore these foundational documents simply because some parents or families don't agree with them. And I lastly, well, this is not the sword I'm gonna die on, feel that I need to say that I understand there's a policy in place that middle school students need parent permission to sign out young adult books from the library. And I can understand the sentiment behind that, but I believe that to be at odds with the Library Bill of Rights. I don't remember any such process from when my 3 students went through the middle school here. I really strongly believe that if there's going to be a procedure in place by which parents can make decisions about access to books, that should be a passive consent or an opt-out process, meaning that the onus is on parents who don't want their children to be able to exercise their right to information and ideas to withdraw that permission. I don't think the onus should be on parents to say that their children should have access to books because that's a fundamental First Amendment right that they should have. And the Library Bill of Rights specifically speaks to this with regard to school libraries. So thank you for listening. I know that was long. I'm glad Daphne didn't have to read it. And I appreciate your attention and the time that you're taking to listen to all the members of our community. Thank you.
I'm Amanda Calvo. First, I want to start by saying I'm incredibly disappointed because by May 30th, we will be into the end of 4 months where this issue has been swirling around. We asked for transparency from the very beginning, and we've gotten no transparency. What we got last meeting was a plan to make a plan, and what we got this meeting was a plan to talk about the plan that we had to talk about the first plan. I sense from some of the board members this really genuine sort of drive to just get this done and make it happen. I liked some of the feedback that I got, or that I at least listened to. The one thing that I want to ask you guys is, what have you done? You guys didn't have an answer to a single question. You don't have an answer to anything. You don't know what's going on, and these guys are asking questions and nobody's, why wasn't this is like the hottest topic, bro. Did you have a meeting with the librarian? It's like convenient, like questions get answered when it's like all fun, but like, did you have a meeting in between board meetings with the librarian? Did you ask her to come here? Did she refuse to come here? This is the hottest topic there possibly could be, and the only one who has all of the answers that were asked tonight was the librarian, who should have been required to be here. And why didn't you send a letter out in 3 months? You want to have this open forum discussion, send a letter out to every single parent saying, hey, we have huge controversy in our school district. This is what's being talked about. These are some of the things that have been tossed around. Why don't you work on educating your parents so they could show up educated to the meeting and have an honest conversation that's well informed? It's like something that somebody brought up was, I would like to have somewhat of a plan before we go in there. It's been 3 months. You're just dragging your feet. You don't have a single answer to a single question. You have no idea what's going on. The permission slip that comes out is for English classes, who are reading specific books in that English class, where like they want to notify the parents and say, hey, listen, our English class, English 10 is reading this book, and we just want to make sure it's everybody. And so that all the parents get notified. You know when this permission slip came out? It came out 2 weeks ago. With no Greenville letterhead on it. It looks like my 6th grader typed it, and just tossed it out there to middle school only. You're not doing the work. The last time I was here, I said you're lazy. I called you lazy. There's people that aren't lazy and that are trying to do what they need to do, but they can't because you guys are dragging your feet. You don't have a single answer. You don't have a single perspective. You don't have a single solution. All you keep saying is, well, we have a plan to make a plan. And you know what I'm really tired of hearing? The misinformation. So I get parents coming up here going, banning books, banning books. We already know we lost that war. We don't have the right to pull the books out of the library. This isn't personal. If it was personally me, I would take them all out of here. I got one. You're not getting it back. I'll pay for it. I don't care. Paid for it the first time. I'll pay for it again. This is about a permission slip. So start putting a letter out and informing your parents so people don't think that we're, God, whatever she just called me, a bigot, homophobic, I'm none of those things. Literally none of them. I'm just saying, give the power back to the parents and be transparent with the parents on what their kids are doing. I'm not going to sit and put a heroin documentary on my goddamn television so my kids feel better informed about how to shoot heroin. Are you freaking kidding me? And I'm sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful, but whoever it was talked about library rights and all this other BS. I've got parental rights. And as long as I pay the bills in my house and the roof over my kid's head, my parental rights come before any freaking library. So keep the books, figure out the plan, and start getting some damn answers. You guys are like pointing your fingers at each other. Well, I don't really know. Maybe so-and-so knows. How about maybe that person knows? How about we just wait until the mass explosion that's going to happen at your little workshop? That's what's going to happen. You're not putting out any letters. You're not talking about what's actually going on. You're not giving the information for parents. So parents are just going to show up with all this crazy misinformation, like some who already left, who think that parents are standing up here trying to ban books and burn down the library because there's horrible things in it. Listen, if you're that person and you don't care about what your kid reads, you'd sign the permission slip, right? I mean, let's just like stop bullshitting. And that's what it is. Parents have the right to parent and you don't. You don't have the right to teach my kid how to shoot heroin, right? Or smoke crack, or how to get a fake ID. These are home things. I'm tired of everybody talking about how this library needs to educate kids on some of the stuff that we read. It does not need to be educated. Believe me when I tell you something. I have 3 teenage boys. They'll figure it out on their damn own. They don't need a book that's that graphic and depicts that kind of stuff in the school library. They can access it on the internet. They can access anything on the internet. They can go to the public library. This is a building that is meant for educating. It's not to talk about all the library rights all over the world and how everybody's free to read whatever they want. You're right, you're free to read whatever you want. Outside of these tax-funded walls that are only required to teach my child what it is like to be educated in the world of math, writing, reading, not morals. That's not your job. It's not your job to make my child a well-rounded child. It's my job to not be a lazy parent. It's my job to talk to my kids about sex. It's my job to make sure that they do their assignments. It's my job to make sure they come in your school and respect you as a human being and their peers. It's not your job. Somewhere along the lines, that line got clouded where the school district started thinking that they had the right to parent. You don't. You don't have the right to do anything whatsoever that has to do with morals. You have a policy and you have a set of rules. Don't punch each other in the face. Don't say bad words. Don't disrespect your teacher. Do your assignments. And it's like literally that simple for you guys. You're making it complicated. Don't take the books out of school. I don't care whose kid wants to read it. If their parent says they can, it's that simple. And what's amazing to me is 3.5 freaking months after this thing started, you guys are talking about the same thing that I said at the first meeting. But nothing has been done. You sent out, it literally doesn't even have a Greenville Central School District letterhead. How would anybody know? Send a full letter out about what's going on at these board meetings and attach if all you can do right now is a paper permission slip, attach it appropriately, professionally, with the information on why parents are even receiving it, so that they have from now till Doomsday 30th here to get themselves educated to show up so we can have a discussion about what needs to happen. The fact that there's not going to be a single thing implemented until September is insane to me. You want to know why it's insane? Because you guys put the books in here without educating yourself first. That's why. It's all over the news, guys. It's all over the news. It's all over social media. It's like this massive controversial thing. And so where I'm not saying that you could have prevented parents' opinions on either side, you definitely could have started making some ideas and implementing some things that would have cushioned this for not only you guys taking the hit, but for parents. Because when the parents came up here, you could have said, hey, these books are coming in this year, these are what's on this list, this is a big deal. We could have started this conversation. Somebody said at the last meeting, they've been here for 2 years, some of them. And I'm going to tell you something. Nobody's getting flagged. Nobody's getting flagged. Nobody's getting an email. It's not happening. I mean, maybe a kid here, a kid there, maybe the librarian knows so-and-so, Johnny and San Francisco's parent over there is a raving lunatic, so maybe she goes out of her way to contact that parent, but your students aren't being flagged. It's a bunch of BS. So my whole point to being so aggressive with you guys for the past 3 months is stop dropping the ball. Educate yourself on what's going on in the world so that you can better tackle the issues when they arise. Stop waiting for some parent to waltz in here all kinds of mad and get yourself all in the paper. That's what I mean by being lazy. You have a job and a duty, and that's to protect our children when they're with you. So when you see all this controversial stuff all over television, get yourselves together, have a conversation. Some parents are going to come in here mad. What do we do? It's not complicated. You guys are making it complicated. I'm so disappointed. I'm so beyond disappointed that you guys still have nothing. And all you're doing is wasting this next month waiting to put the responsibility on the parents. It's sad. It's so sad, man. I have nothing else to say after that. You guys really need to start taking some pointers from the people that are eager to resolve the issue on your board. Because right now I see a board that isn't on the same page.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Please state your name.
My name is Jen Dawson. I have 2 children in Greenville, and I am also obviously a taxpayer. First of all, thank you, board members, for volunteering to do this work. We know it's a lot of work, and especially at this budget time of year, which is obviously a priority. I look forward to, as we continue to address this book issue and discuss it, I appreciate you taking the time to hear everyone and look at it thoughtfully. Before I get on, what I'm not sure about hearing all the discussion tonight is, are we talking about parental permission up to a certain age, which I know, that alone has its controversy, but when you talk about having kids have to get permission to look at a book, especially as after high school, it just gives me such anxiety, and I am back in high school as a kid, and there are a whole bunch of books my parents would not have wanted me to read. They were well-meaning and they love me, but we have to think about the kids whose parents would not want them to read books XYZ because it differs for them politically. Maybe they don't want their kid to be gay. Maybe their kid will get their ass beat because they think they're transgender. That shit happens. I don't know if everyone, we all love our kids and we all want to take care of our kids, and we're all like really involved parents. That's the thing, is all the really involved parents show up at these things. We need to think about the kids whose parents, they might love them, but maybe they have some really strict rules. There's different things they would really not want their kids to read. And these kids, when you get past the age of 15, you have an inner life, you have a private life, and that has to be acknowledged. And to take that away from kids at that age is setting them up for depression, anxiety, all kinds of things. And it gives me anxiety because I remember my things I was able to look at, or if I brought a book home, I would have gotten in big trouble. I mean, that is a real thing, so I don't know if I want to. I know that I signed a permission slip for my kids to sign out books in middle school, and I signed it. But especially as you're moving into the high school age, you know, you can only get to control your kids until they're 18. So if you're not letting them branch out and explore and have some thoughts of their own before then you're in for a wild ride when they turn 18. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about that. My last comment is totally off of the book topic. I'm sure everyone's happy about that. I would love to have dogs be allowed on campus. As a person who, as Angela knows, lives in Greenville, walks her dog, and not so much currently, but runs with her dog, I can't believe you brought this up. This is a hot button topic for me. Greenville doesn't have a lot of paved trails and lighted spaces, and as somebody who does walk all times of day and at night, and not always with my big dog, but when I do have him, to have the paved spaces and the very lit spaces on the school open, I kind of do it anyway, but it would be nice if it was allowed. You all know, you've probably seen me, Obi. There are leash laws though, as I said earlier, and to put in some kind of policy so that you can police that. So you're policing people keeping their dogs on a leash. And you could flag somebody and say, hey, if a dog is unruly on more than one occasion, that dog can't come. But that's all I have to say. Go dogs.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, then I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Sorry.
Hi, Renee Royer again. Again, wasn't planning on coming up here. To be the other side of the coin as far as available books for this May 30th forum that I agree is going to be insane. Have a very good moderator if you can, because this is going to be... Where are the books, the Easter books? There's probably 1 million books here about the Easter Bunny and egg hunts. Where's the book about the tomb being empty? Where's the book about the miracle of the menorah and the oil? I could probably find a book about the dreidel game. Where's the other side of the coin? There can be all sorts of books available. I agree, I'm a very avid reader and I read everything. My books are on the top shelf because my oldest is 11. She's not ready for that yet. But the other side of the coin is it cannot be inclusive for one and not all. Inclusive, by definition, is all. So where are the religious books? And I understand there's a fine line, church and state, all that. There's not much that can be done. But if we're going to put the argument out where it needs to be a safe space for everybody, I want my kids to be able to come in and read the book about the 3 wise men at Christmas. I want the book about the tomb being empty. You can't have one without the other. Have them all. It's wonderful. I agree. Have all of the books, but have all of the books. Thank you.
Our point all along is all the books need to be here, not just
one group of kids feeling included.
Good evening. As you know, I'm Brian Reed, middle school principal. Some good news to share. I'll be real quick here. This morning we were able to hold just a brief faculty meeting to recognize the hard work over the past few years of our faculty, staff, administrators in a team effort, as the New York State has recognized as is not a TSI school anymore, and that is a targeted support and intervention school. We had to put on a list because of our academic performance of our state assessments. We are now considered a local support improvement school, or an LSI. It used to be the language of a school in good standing. So we're very pleased. Our staff is very excited this morning. We also know, though, from the start, when this occurred right before COVID, we were put on that list, and then we didn't have state exams for a couple of years. It's kind of dragged the process out a little bit longer. But from the start, we said, yes, we will get off this list, but we're also going to create some different processes and changes that we know are going to keep going forward. So being on that local list is, again, we keep working towards continuous school improvement. And that's something definitely as a staff we will continue, but it was very nice to be able to share that news with them this morning, as it was very welcoming, and it's been a long few years, and the staff has worked very hard, so it definitely was a team effort. So just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Angela? And who else? Dave?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Eric.